lost track of all time. Late guest every time. I can't hear it on the radio. I can't hear it anywhere you go. This down will never get signed. Okay, said storm which fly. It's so cool you won't ever know. They never even played a show. We can't hear them on the radio. Sitting around and rock and roll. It'd have to be Romeo. So of course I made it gold. He just looks a little too old. Songs will never get sung. The best life never leaves you long. So good you won't ever know. You can't hear it on the radio. You can't hear it on the radio.
All right. Welcome back to another week of the Kaufman Show. Dave Kaufman, Jay Farrar, Mark Griffin here with you for the next 2 hours. Got a great show ahead tonight, guys. Hello, Jay.
Dave Kaufman.
What's up, buddy?
How are you, buddy?
I'm great. I've got a real nervous feeling in my stomach tonight.
Why? Why are you nervous?
Because this is a big show. We're talking about Gary Carter tonight, and the news of the last week has hit me hard.
It's hit us all hard.
And that's why we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to
get it out a little bit.
That's it. And
deal with it.
And there's some people that we're going to speak to, and we're really excited. We have a wonderful, wonderful lineup of guests tonight. We'll be joined by Jonah Carey in 5 minutes. Jonah, of course, is writing the Expos tome to be released in 2014 on the 10-year anniversary of the departure of Nos Amour. And we'll get his thoughts on Gary Carter. Buck 65 will be on the program in about a half an hour's time. If you don't know Buck 65, check him out on YouTube. He is a Canadian legend, music legend, radio legend, huge baseball fan as well. Was scouted by the Yankees and says that if it wasn't for a shoulder injury, would have been better than Derek Jeter.
He says that?
Yep.
All right.
Or if not better than, he would have been the Yankees shortstop. They would have picked him over Derek Jeter.
I used to have guys on my softball team that used to say that too.
We've also got Stephanie Miles on the show. We're going to be traveling into the future to speak with Steph. It's Tuesday afternoon where Steph is. She is in Melbourne, Australia, Rod Laver Arena. We'll talk a little tennis. Also, Stephanie, of course, covered the Expos. You can follow her on Twitter at ExposBabe. I think she started covering the Expos when Jeff Blair left for Toronto.
That's an awesome Twitter handle, by the way.
It really is.
ExposBabe. It's pretty clear.
It wouldn't suit any of us, but it's fantastic for her.
Well, I'd do it. Why not? I was thinking about that.
Mark Griffin's here as well. Good evening.
Good evening, guys.
How are you?
I'm doing good, but to sum it all up tonight, a wise man who was actually in studio once said, "This one's for the kid." And so this is a very special show for us all tonight.
That's right. Anakin Slade is here. He's near to a microphone and leaning into one as we speak. Hello, Anakin.
Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. I couldn't miss this. It's going to be an Expos Love Fest, and more specifically a Kid Carter Love Fest, so I couldn't miss it.
Well, I cannot wait to speak with you about all of your memories. Of course, as you've said, quote in your own words, your first brush with fame is to do with Gary Carter.
Quite true.
And we will hear from you, Anakin, and from Jay, and from Mark, and from all of you. 514-790-0990, 1-866-896-2546. We will be opening the phone lines tonight. Not right now, but we will be opening the phone lines to hear your memories of the great Gary Carter. Now, there's a whole other slew of stuff going on in the world of sports, which we will get to. Maybe we'll see how it goes tonight. Maybe we'll run a little late. We've been known to do that before.
Hey, why not? I got nothing to do.
You know, Tim Thomas running his mouth today. And
what is up with that?
I don't know. But I do want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about
Probably
it.
get a few calls about that, too. Everybody's got an opinion.
The tea party. What's going to happen when 4,000 Earl Grey tea bags land on the ice next time the Bruins come to town?
Why Earl Grey?
Well, why not? Name another one. Orange Pico.
I could not name any tea. At all.
Lemon Zinger.
Oh, come on, Griffin.
Damn, the pirates lied for me.
This is the Kaufman Show. We'll be right back with Jonah Carey. Welcome back to the Kaufman Show. 10 past 11. Jay Farrar, Mark Griffin, yours truly. Anakin Slade is in studio. And we've got a very special guest on the line.
He's on?
During the baseball season, you can catch him in the mornings on TSN 990 with Elliot and Sean. But it's the wintertime, so we get him at night. Jonah Carey, welcome to the program.
You don't need me to start rapping too, do you?
No. Come on, there's enough of that here.
Good.
We already have the quota is filled.
That's good.
I promise.
Just checking.
You can do the writing for us.
Excellent. That's good.
Jonah is, of course, in the midst of writing the Expos book, the authoritative tome on the Montreal Expos. How's it going?
It's going well. I should say that Jacques Doucet's written a pretty authoritative tome, too. Let's say that this is the authoritative tome in English. How about that?
Deal. I think that's a very fair statement.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going well. I've interviewed Jacques. I was in Florida last week. I interviewed Dave Van Horn and Cliff Floyd. Tim Raines, Tim Wallach, Charles Bronfman, Ken Singleton, Bill Stoneman. Lots of people have been interviewed already, and many more to come. It's been a lot of fun, and it'll be an interesting, different kind of book. It won't be like page 1, 1969, page 2, 1970. It'll kind of bounce around. It'll have some personal memories in there, too, and some oral history stuff, and even Rick Monday will be made to look not too bad in this book. How about that?
Well, that sounds like a very fair way to look at it. I don't think that all of the Montreal Expos problems can be blamed on Rick Monday.
Yes, they can.
Well, I think the other guy that gets blamed a lot for some of the problems that happened with the Expos, you might be surprised by what you read about that gentleman as well.
You're speaking of Mr. Loria?
I am indeed.
Okay. I look forward to that. I wish I didn't have to wait till 2014, but they say the good things come to those who wait, right?
Indeed, yeah. And I wish I could give away a little bit more, but I can't do that yet. And it's early in the process anyway, and I'm still trying to figure out what the book is going to look like. I've got something like, 70 or 80 interviews left. My intention is to do 225, something like that. So long way to go. I've got to figure out exactly how I want the format to look and all that good stuff. But very supportive publisher. Same publisher as the last book, the Extra 2%. Same editor. It was a guy who's an American. Went to McGill for 4 years in the late 90s, fell in love with the Expos, did the Rays book with him. They said, you should write a book about the Expos. And I said, I don't know about that. He said, I'll pay you money for it. I said, okay, that's fine. Let's do it. So that's pretty much the conversation. So.
Well, I like I said, I cannot wait for the book. And you know that once it's released, I think there'll be a lot of people in this city sitting on buses and walking around with that book. And boy, yeah, I'm so excited, Jonah. And did you get to speak to Gary Carter?
I didn't for this book. I did interview him a few years ago for a non-related interview, and there's enough material there that I could put together some good stuff, but it's not like I've talked to him in the last few months, unfortunately. No, I mean, he took ill, well, I think he was ill probably, to be honest with you, before I signed the deal for this book, which was last summer. And I did kind of reach out to his reps a little bit, but it's just tough going. I mean, he's not doing interviews of any kind, and I'm just not going to push it, quite frankly. I mean, even if there was a window there, you have to respect the guy's privacy. And wish him and his family all the best, and I'll whatever charity it is that the Carter family happens to be going for when 2014 rolls around, I'm going to donate proceeds, at least partial proceeds from the book to that charity. It seems only right to do that.
Good stuff, Jonah. That's it's very, very heavy and very cool. Now, how much has Gary Carter come up in interviews with others as being one of the linchpins of the Expos in the 80s?
He definitely has come up, and I've kind of pushed the question a little bit in the last few times I've done interviews. For instance, with Dave Van Horn, just where I talked to him, I think it was on Wednesday in Florida, Boca Raton, and that's why I asked him extensively about Gary, since it was obviously topical. And with some other people, I mean, Reigns was obviously teammate. Warren Cromartie, who's maybe been my favorite interview so far, he talked about Gary as well. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, we didn't say anything. There was just a pause in the action.
We're just
there.
listening patiently, Jonah. We're just listening to the gospel.
No problem. Anyway, so Gary has come up quite a bit, and he really was he was someone who's beloved by fans, certainly, and a great player, and really hung around for a long time. It was interesting the way that the Expos gained a reputation eventually as, you developed players and they left. A lot of the guys I've interviewed have taken to calling it Expos University, and they don't mean it in a good way. You spend your 4 years and then you're gone, and that's as a player or as a front office guy, by the way. You look at Duquette and Dombrowski and all these other guys that come through. But Carter was there for a lot longer, and when he ultimately got traded in '84, after he was agitating for a bigger contract, I mean, that was sort of this inflection point with the franchise, and people get on Blue Monday and '94 not happening and Jeffrey Loria and blah, blah, blah. But there are people that will tell you, and Charles Bronfman will tell you, that when Carter's contract demands went up and he could see the escalating salaries happening and that players were not going to be loyal, and maybe that was just naive on Bronfman's part to think that, but that's when it started to change, and that's when he had second thoughts and realized he might have to sell the team eventually. So Carter, both as a player, certainly made a big difference in Montreal, but kind of as a symbol, too, in that he was kind of the guy who tipped it off to Charles Bronfman, hey, wait a minute, I might not be able to sustain this. And, of course, once Bronfman was out of the way and they brought in new ownership, it really was never the same after that. Yes, '94 happened after that. Yes, they had some other good years. But in terms of off the field, they never had the steady balance sheet. They never had quite the same support that they did when Bronfman was owning the team.
We're in conversation with Jonah Carey from Grantland.com, the author of The Extra 2%. And, boy, we're all big fans of his, and he's writing a big Expos book right now. And, wow, I got to say, I wish it was out today.
I really do. I seriously am. I'm losing patience. Jonah, are you going to do a little signing in Montreal when it's released?
Oh, I'm sure I will. Publishers aren't very... it's not very popular to do that anymore because it doesn't tend to be, unless you're Bill Simmons or someone who could really pack a place and, hundreds and hundreds of people show up, it sort of doesn't make sense to fly an author around the country. And that was fine with the last book, and it, was a New York Times bestseller, and I showed up to 2 or 3 places. So, I mean, it must have done something right, and that's all fine. But Montreal, to me, it's nothing. I mean, I would go back and see my family anyway. Why is it any skin off my nose to go down to Chapters or Indigo or whatever, and so I'd be happy to do that. If 2 people show up and it's my buddies, that's fine. I would still do it anyway. So, yes, I will definitely.
Me and Kaufman show up.
Yeah, well, okay, you guys and a couple of buddies who I used to play basketball with will show up, and that's fine.
Max Harris would be there too. I think
that's true as well.
You'd have a very good show up of people who live west of Saint Laurent, I think, Jonah.
That's right. Well, that might be true, and I'm from Saint Laurent, so that's a reasonable eastern border.
I wanted to say, you mentioned how the Carter had stayed. He also came back, and that really resonated, at least with my generation of baseball fans.
Yeah, that's right. And I was at that game. Probably, maybe everybody involved in this conversation was at that game.
I think so.
Yeah, I was there.
Where he hit the big double. I mean, you could count the games from that era. There was that game. There was the Curtis Pratt game, which everybody claims to have been at, and I was at as well. And there are a few of them. And that game stands out to me, the Carter game, for sure. He was at the end of his career, no question, and they had competed a little bit in '92. It didn't quite go down as far as it did in '93, but they were in the mix when Felipe came in and kind of turned that team around, and people were really paying their respects, and it was a big moment. It was really something. I think must have been a 6 or 7 minute ovation when he had that double, and it was a really cool thing. And the Expos have done that with other players too, by the way. I can remember Galarraga coming back toward the end of his career, and some other guys, and there's something to be said for that. Montreal crowds are sort of, you guys know this, they're interesting. I mean, they like a party, they like a good time. There are certain players that they catch on to, especially guys who have flair. I could think of someone like Pascual Perez was a very popular player, even though he was good but not great, and they had guys like that. And I think there is some sentiment involved, and they did welcome the guys when they would come back to the team, be it a Carter, be it a Galarraga, someone like that. So it certainly did resonate that season, and ultimately proved to be the year one in what was a really good window for the Expos on the field. 92 really to 96. They were good for most of that period.
Jonah, you were, I'd say, about 10 years old when Carter was in his prime with the Expos. What did he mean to you as a kid growing up in Montreal following baseball?
Well, I was a Reigns guy. I was always a Reigns guy. He was my favorite player, but I appreciated Carter as well. I mean, you could not. And the thing that stood out to me was he was so darn good in the All-Star game every year. There was a cover. I was a Sports Illustrated subscriber, which is to say my dad bought me a subscription when I was really, really young. So my Twitter avatar right now is Carter on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I think it's August 4th. August 4th? No, April 4th, 1983. But then there's another one from August 17th, 1981, which is they have the strike, they come back, they play in the All-Star game. Carter hits a home run, and it's the third base coach. It was the Expos third base coach congratulating Carter as he's rounding third base. So it's just these cool events, and Carter was MVP of the All-Star game one year, and then there was a year that it was at the Big O when they had 5 Expos starting in the game, and Carter was one of them. And it was funny about Carter and Reigns. I don't know how to describe it to you. I mean, I look at it, I'm a numbers guy, and I look at the numbers now, and I can make a case for you that Reigns had maybe a comparable career to Carter. Carter was a catcher, of course, and all that, but Reigns just had a hugely valuable career, too. But Carter just seemed to be, at the time, perceived as a bigger star, as kind of a bigger name player, a flashier player in some ways, not in the style of play, but in the way that he reacted to the media and the way that he was perceived nationally, and he had that halo about him. So I guess I took to Reigns because he ran more or whatever. Maybe I appreciated his style of play more, but just in terms of remembering him as a kid, he was the guy that you would see on whatever, This Week in Baseball, or the national pundits would be talking about him. It seemed more than Reigns or even Andre Dawson, who obviously had a lot of acclaim in that era, too.
I also remember a very large banner on, billboard on DeCarry that you could see as you were going up the expressway. I think it was for an underwear company that he sponsored, and I was always blown away by this giant Gary Carter ad for underwear with his signature on it and some sort of a slogan in French.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I mean, obviously I'm not from the Rusty Staub era, but for me, Gary Carter was the guy who stepped up and really made himself a part of the community.
He had charisma, and he would shine at the right moments. That was the key to Carter. He just knew when to shine, and he had that flashiness about him, which we all love. That's the key to his popularity.
We're finishing up. Oh, sorry, Jonah, go ahead. No, please.
I was going to say all those things are true, and it's interesting you mentioned him being a beacon of the community and so forth. There's a funny split with the players. Carter was maybe one of the last of that era. I talked to Kenny Singleton and some other guys from the 70s, Bill Stoneman, and they all said they lived there year-round. They used to play shinny, in the off-season. They played pickup basketball and all these things. And that ended as he went along. By the time he got to the 90s, and certainly by Vladimir Guerrero and so forth, you'd have an apartment, then you'd skip town. But Carter was still there pretty much year-round for a large part of it, and that was the case with a lot of people of that generation. That kind of changed as well as you went along.
Finishing up with Jonah Carey, just going to ask you a quick baseball question, Jonah, before we let you go. Prince Fielder, do you think he's going to sign somewhere soon?
Yeah, I think he's going to sign with the once and future Montreal Expos.
I didn't want you to say that.
Well, I mean, I don't have any inside information. I'm not John Heyman or Ken Rosenthal or anything, but I mean, it just seems like the logical fit. He'd be perfect for that lineup. They have a bunch of right-handed hitters. I think the price has come down from what it was. I think the Nationals had a pretty low payroll last year, to be honest with you, and even with Worth and some other guys, the Lerners are loaded. I mean, they can afford it if they want to. I really don't have anything against it. I don't root for the Nationals, but I don't care. I don't dislike the Nationals, and I think that if you just look at it, it just makes a whole lot of sense, probably more for them than it does any other team. Honestly, if they had Fielder, I think they're a wild card contender. I think that they're kind of not that far away. They're probably an 80-something win team. You put Fielder on there, he might be a 5 or 6 win player. Makes them pretty interesting.
And suddenly the NL East becomes one of the best in baseball, best divisions in baseball.
I think it's already pretty close to that. I think the Nationals are an above 500 team now. Obviously, we know the Marlins. I mean, you want to talk about teams that people in Montreal might not like so much. That could be another one. And, of course, the Braves are still good, too. I mean, I have this there's an expression that I keep using in writing, which makes me pretentious or something. I don't know. But it's called harahachibu, which in Japanese means you eat until you're 80% full. The Atlanta Braves are total harahachibu. They eat, and then they stop at 80%. And if I was an Atlanta Braves fan, I'd want to punch ownership in the face because they do this every damn year since the end of the dynasty. They spend up until a certain point. They say, okay, we're good. We're going to win 86 games and finish just short of the playoffs. It would drive me absolutely bonkers if I rooted for that team. And I think you're going to see that again this year, where that team and the Marlins and the Nationals, if they don't get Fielder, are all going to be around that area.
Jonah, thank you so much for your time. Continue writing on with the book, and every time you send out a tweet with a teaser, everybody here gets excited.
Well, I'm just trying to drive book sales, guys. It has nothing to do with anything other than making a lot of money for myself and living on an island.
Well, if Denver's an island, then enjoy.
There you go. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonah. Jonah Carey, Grantland.com. What was it, Hachiburu?
Yeah, maybe he learned that from Crow. It's possible.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Hopefully Darvish does 100% of what he's supposed to this year for the Rangers, not 80%.
I'm sure Crow will claim that he taught it to him, so, we'll ask him next time.
Interesting to hear Carey talk about being a Rains guy versus a Carter guy. Almost like a Beatles versus Stones kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, they're exactly the opposite type of styles. Carter could run at the beginning of his career, but later on it was terrible. And obviously he wasn't. I mean, he could hit for average, but he wasn't that kind of old school player. He was more of a flashy guy, home runs, shine at the right moment.
Lights, right?
Lights, camera, and $1 million smile.
Well, that's a testament to how good the team was. There were so many talented players on it that people had their different favorites.
I was a Dawson guy.
There you go.
Yeah, I was a Dawson guy. Hit for power, speed, outfield, all things I couldn't do.
514-790-0990. We're talking about Gary Carter tonight on the Kaufman Show. Anakin, please jump into the mic. You okay?
Next time you talk to Carey,
Yeah.
you got to ask him what if he feels, not being in Montreal, if he feels kind of the same rise in nostalgia about the Expos that we're feeling over here. I think, I don't know how the rest of the league, feels about it. I don't know. You're the journalist, so you can phrase the question better. But like,
What are you telling him how to do his show?
well, that's not what I do. But basically this feeling that we're getting that the Expos are almost more into the spotlight than they have been, obviously, since maybe even before they left.
Right.
And it's that kind of feeling. So I don't know. I feel it.
There's something about Gary Carter and his condition right now that's really jarred Expos fans, and especially a generation of Expos fans that's older than me. Because when you picture Gary Carter, you picture him like in these SI covers that Jimmy so kindly just printed out for me. The best in the business, Gary Carter from April 4th, 1983. Montreal's Gary Carter, one reason why the National League is tops. And look at him. He's so full of life. He's so young. And that's the thing. Gary Carter was always just this smile. My memories of Gary Carter from a personal level are from Johnny Elias's Grand Slam baseball school, where Carter would come once a week and do a little instructional. And I'll tell a good story a little later on in the show about the question I asked Gary Carter and how Johnny Elias took me aside and told me that I can't talk to athletes that way. If anybody remembers, Gary Carter held out from coming back to the Expos because he wanted more money.
Yes, he did.
Anyway, we'll
Who didn't?
Well, exactly. But as a kid, as an 11-year-old, I had no concept of that. It was, what do you mean you don't want to come play here? Yeah. So the news, and you want to talk about our generation, my generation of Expos fans feeling old this week. Orlando Cabrera retired.
The one thing as Expos fans we should get used to is sadness.
Isn't that awful, though?
Yeah. Yeah, we should be used to it by now.
But it sucks because...
Does that make you feel old or what? Seeing Cabrera retired, gray hair?
You know what, Anakin, seeing Mel Rojas last year looking like my Zeta was the... Yeah, it's been a while since the Expos have played.
But you know what? Moises looked great. Moises looked like he could still play.
He could play tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're talking about Gary Carter tonight. We're going to be joined by Buck 65 after Jamie gives you an update. Right now, let's go out on a little gourd.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Driving with a yellow dog, I-95's got a smile on his face and big shiny eyes. Up at a decent hour, never ate yet. Got a little Johnny Cash in the old tape deck. Nothing in the trunk but some baseball gloves. Pair of jumper cables and a set of golf clubs. Blanket on the back seat, we're in rough shape. Sunroof held on with a bit of duct tape. Looking for a gas station, better make a list. Fill her up with regular, I need to take a piss. Sexy girl air freshener, snacks in a pinwheel. Top up the fluids, clean the bugs off the windshield. Not a care in the world, not a how and a why. No destination, not a cloud in the sky. Back on the road, not a moment too soon. Dish ran away with some other spoon. Wicked and weird, I'm a road hog with an old dog singing soul songs, trying to hold on. Wicked and weird, I'm a ratfish, trying to practice doing backflips on your mattress. Wicked and weird,
Welcome back to the Kaufman Show. Dave Kaufman, Jay Farrar, Mark Griffin, special guest Anakin Slade in studio. Full house tonight. And that, of course, was Buck 65, who is our next guest. And you know, I look to my right in the studio, and Mark Griffin is rocking a very nice 65. Say Buck on the back, Mark?
It's got a centaur on the back.
Very nice.
I'm a big
Very nice.
fan.
That is his Twitter handle. There's a centaur in the avatar for his Twitter feed, at Buck65 on Twitter. You can, you can find him if there's a baseball game playing or a show. He'll be in Wakefield next week. I think I might drive out there and see him. Buck65, welcome back to the program.
Hey, it's good to be here.
How are you?
Well, I'm good. And I say it's good to be here, but of course it's under sad circumstances.
Yeah.
I wish it was different circumstances.
I promise you we'll have you on for something happy soon, you know. I promise.
Well, baseball season is right around the corner, so there's lots to look forward to.
Absolutely. And I can say this now, our Jays are looking good. I didn't feel that way the last time we spoke. They weren't our Jays yet, but I'll say that now.
Yeah, they've been reaching out.
Exactly, and it's been nice to see. But in the meantime, we're here to talk about Gary Carter, who I know was your idol, was your baseball idol growing up.
Well, yeah, and still is really, and was more to me than just a favorite baseball player. I would go so far as to say just a very influential figure in my life. I got to meet. I think I might have mentioned this the last time we spoke, but I got to meet him and then later the rest of the team back in 1984, and I was 12 years old at the time, and it was amazing. He was the first guy to show up at the park that day. I got to meet him at Olympic Stadium early in the morning. I think it was on a Sunday. They were playing the Padres that weekend. He was the first to show up, to get warmed up and so on. And when I met him, basically in the tunnel that led out to the dugout, he couldn't have been sweeter with me. He invited me to go out onto the field to play catch with him. And one of the first experiences I ever had as a kid where an adult was treating me with just so much, I don't know, kindness and generosity. I mean, he was being very sweet to me. I think he changed the way I just looked at grown-ups in a lot of ways, and it was just such a overwhelming experience. But then, in addition to that, I can say that, I'm a guy that's never touched drugs in my life in any kind of way. And when I was a kid and seeing him being involved in the whole Say No to Drugs program and stuff, that really meant something to me. Gary Carter could have told me to eat my shoelaces at the end of every game, and I would have done it. So if he told me say no to drugs, that was all I needed to hear. And I honestly think that a lot of the decisions I made in my life, important ones like that, I owe to his influence.
That's an incredibly powerful statement, Buck. Wow.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely true, and I was already a big fan before I met him in 1984. But after that, and just how great he was with me, and how generous, and he was just so, he was just so cool and patient and everything. That I just absolutely worshipped him after that. And that meeting for me was it was such a profound experience. And then, of course, there was so much great stuff to come. I mean, it broke my heart when he left Montreal, but he had those, incredible seasons and heroics, with the Mets and so on. And, I mean, he was just a towering, monumental figure in my life, and the whole situation with his health here in these last, several months. To be perfectly honest with you, has been a difficult thing for me. I mean, it really makes me emotional. I mean, the whole thing breaks my heart, and it looks like, from what we know today, that things are pretty, pretty grim, and I'm really bracing myself for it because he's been a really important guy to me in my whole life.
We're in conversation with musician Buck 65. Buck, have you met Anakin Slade?
We haven't met face to face yet.
Let me introduce you over the radio then. Anakin, Buck Anakin.
Hey now.
How are you, man?
Good, and it's good. Well, it's good to. Can we call this meeting? It's good to talk to you.
It is a bit like a therapy session, and it's funny that the way you talk about him, and especially using words like influence and talking about how you just wanted to be exactly like him. I couldn't express how I felt about Gary closer. It's so close how we feel about him. It was the same way for me. I mean, I was a catcher when I was a kid, and whenever they were giving out the jerseys, I'm like, is number 8 available? I mean,
yeah.
I'm younger than you, but I mean, I had enough knowledge of what an inspiration was to know, even being so young, that Gary was everything. He was everything you needed to be inspired. I mean, that's the way I felt.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, here was a guy, especially given just what the times were like in baseball. I mean, these were, some wild times, and we've heard stories of just how wild, those 86 Mets were and so on. But he was one of the few guys who was willing to step up and say, I embrace this, position as role model, and I don't have a problem with, being here as being like a representative, for kids and for these different causes. And I know there were people that, made fun of him and said he was, a square and a camera hog or whatever else.
Yeah.
But I mean, his heart was in the right place. I mean, he was a good man and wanted to do good things. And it's impossible for me to fault him for that. I mean, he just did so much good stuff beyond the diamond.
I find it so interesting, Buck, that you talk about his sweetness and how sweet he was with you. And that's not a common trait that you hear about a professional athlete.
No, it's really not. And like I said, I mean, I got to meet the whole team that day. And, I met some good guys, who, took some time for me, Tim Raines and Tim Wallach. And, there were some guys, I even got to meet Duke Snyder that day, but nobody took the time. I mean, it was just a completely different thing with the time I got to spend with Gary Carter. And it was so much more time, and just how sweet he was, and even just how comfortable he was. I mean, I think because he embraced that role, a lot of guys were just kind of uncomfortable with the idea of hanging out and spending time and trying to relate to a 12-year-old kid. But he was so much like a kid himself. It just seemed so easy and natural for him, and he absolutely put me at ease. And I mean, to this day, it's one of the biggest thrills of my life. I mean, I'll never forget it. And he was just an amazing guy that way.
You can go to Buck 65's website, buck65.com, and see the picture of a very young Buck 65 with Gary Carter in the tunnel at the Big O.
That's right. It's there. Yeah, posted with pride, and of course, I was extremely excited and very much looking forward to it when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I thought it was a little bit overdue, and I got to watch him up close. I watched him play every day, and there was never any question in my mind. And like you said, Anakin, I mean, I modeled so much for myself. I would watch the pro tips that the Expos used to do with Zellers and stuff. Do you remember that? Yeah. And I took all that stuff. I strapped on the tools of ignorance for a few seasons with my teams, and I remembered all the tips. I was saying, keep your throwing hand tucked behind your back in case, a ball in the dirt comes up. You don't want to get you in the hand, and all these common sense things that, to this day, if I ever have to play, there's still parts of my game that I would model after things I learned directly from Gary Carter.
Buck 65, we're going to wrap up with you right now, but I want to ask you one more, it's not even a question. I want you to tell the story of the painting that you were given this summer during the Jazz Fest.
Well, yeah, gosh, I saw this this incredible painting of the same image that I noticed you had been using as your avatar on your Twitter thing. This kind of amazing image of Gary Carter being swarmed by adoring kids, signing autographs, presumably with his white uniform, at the Big O there in Montreal, kind of an iconic image of him. And it had come to my attention that there was this very talented artist in Montreal who contacted me, and he said, I've got this painting, and he had seen this story that I had written on my website about how much Gary Carter meant to me in my life, and it was when I first heard the news that he had gotten sick, and he knew that how much he meant to me. So he said, look, I've got this painting, and I see that you're coming to Montreal to play a show, and if you've got some time to say hello after the show, I'd love to give it to you, which is amazing because it's the sort of thing he probably could have charged me, $1,000 for it, and I would have paid it. I mean, it's an amazing thing, but it really meant a lot, and it's been on my wall proudly, ever since, along with tons of other Gary Carter memorabilia that my house is decorated with all over the place. So, it was a moving thing. And one last amazing detail about that, the next morning I met with this guy who made this painting, and we're telling stories, and he told me the most mind-blowing thing imaginable is that his mother used to be a hairdresser and gave Gary Carter his perms. So it was like just a brush with a whole other kind of greatness. I actually got quite a thrill out of that, I got to say.
It is a legendary perm.
I was just going to say, exactly. The artist's name is Kevin McDermott, and
that's right.
He has a blog, artisnotabouttheartist.blogspot.com. You can read his take on it, and didn't cost you $1,000. It cost you a brisket from Schwartz's.
That's exactly what it was, yeah.
$1.65. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and we will speak on a happier occasion.
I'll look forward to that.
Good.
All right.
Have a good night. There he goes, $1.65. This is the Kaufman Show, and
Gary Carter's still alive, by the way.
Well aware, Jay.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with paying tribute to him while he's still alive.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I just don't want people to get the wrong idea. I mean, the guy's still kicking and he's still fighting hard. We're just cheering him on.
That's right, and we're sending a lot of good vibes and a lot of love his way, and that was the plan all along, Jay. It's we are not eulogizing Gary Carter. We are celebrating what Gary Carter has done for our city.
I don't want us to get too down. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's a down situation. And when the news came out, that New York Daily News article came out last week, I was taken aback. And really, I mentioned Orlando Cabrera retiring before. That's nothing. Who cares? Twitter's been exploding tonight. David Gourlay from Ottawa, very emotional. The kid came to Ott City with Duke Snider for an appearance, and he represented a true baseball hero. Rick, my favorite memory of Gary Carter is the way he smiled when he played. He reminds me of the kid in me. Jobu Jays. Serious talk on Carter tonight, boys. It's a shitty deal at 57. This is the Kaufman Show.
Woody Fryman, Ellis. Soon there was no telling where Montreal would stop. I'm talking baseball. Gullickson and Dawson, Expo baseball. Gary Carter's awesome. Cromartie, Scott, and Rodney all can play. Reardon coming in to save the day. Talking baseball. Expo's all the way. When you're talking Expo baseball, Papa Bella and Gene Monk. No hitter Stoneman, he threw two. Duke and Dave up in the booth. Carl and Dawson, rookies of the year. Now Gary's time is here. It rains, stolen bases. Expos going places. They're headed for the series in the fall. New names join the old. Another team unfolds. They're aiming higher with scoop and spire, so let's play ball. I'm talking baseball. Gullickson and Dawson, Expo baseball. That Gary Carter's awesome. Cromartie, Scott, and Rodney all can play. Jeff Reardon coming in to save the day. I'm talking baseball, the Expos all the way. Talking baseball, the Expos all the way. Expos, 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 talking baseball. Expos, Expos, Expos. Walk Carter's the guy, and Timmy can fly. And Expos, 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 I'm talking baseball. Right here in Montreal. Expos, Expos, Expos. Rusty's the one they call Expos, Expos, Expos. The first hero up in Montreal.
You're listening to The Kaufman Show. We'll be right back.
My ring is with them too.
This one's from the Spos. Montreal. Annie Slade's got the springtime blues real bad. Can't help but reminisce about the great years we had. I remember photo day 83 summer. Yeah, I still have to pick up me, my pops and my brother. I remember All-Star Game 5 band strong. 59,000 fans looking on. I remember tears at the kids' last game. Stood right behind him as the anthem played. Now my homemade sign's got his autograph name on the newspaper cover, first rush with fame. I remember singing Valtteri, Valderall, 03 wild card race last hurrah. I remember Vlad 40-40 in the call they got wrong. The game against the Braves, Cliff Floyd going long. Still missing Montreal ball 6 years on. Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Marquise Grissom is flying. He's already at second. Here he comes to third. He's been waved. The play at the plate. Grissom at first slide. Safe at home. Expos
This one's for the kid and the cat and the hawk. And this one's for Britt, Larry, Walk, and The Rock. And this one's for El Presidente, Mo, and No Cab. And this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad. And most of all, this one's for us, the fans who stuck with the team when the times were tough. Singing.
Those were the days, and the memories will never fade. Those I'm holding my heart.
Welcome back to The Kaufman Show. Anakin, not going to lie to you. This song made me cry this week.
Yeah.
Has a whole new resonance for me right now.
Does it really?
Yeah, it really does. It's when you wrote it, it was a song of celebration. It was about Dawson getting into the hall, and there was a whole other feeling. I used to sing it and get those goosebumps and just feel up from it. And now I hear it, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, well, I haven't watched it this week or listened to it.
I was thinking there's 115,000 views on YouTube. I've got to be good for at least 112,000 of them.
That makes me feel very lonely.
No, it's unique views. It's unique views.
Oh, unique views.
Yeah,
okay.
come on.
Right. Yeah, you know, I was just actually listening to it now and hearing the first verse, and, you know, that moment actually just came back to me about meeting Carter and all that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's hard not to be sad. But the song always kind of made me sad anyway.
It's wonderful.
In the hawk, and this one's for Britt, Larry, Walk, and The Rock. And this one's for El Presidente, Mo, and No Cab. And this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad. Sometimes it's the little things that bring us together. That's why I'm an Expo forever. Remember.
And Beachy, and Singy and Jorgie, Stoney and Frenchie, Bach and Cy and LP, Hawk, Crow and Rock, Woody, Ross the Boss and the Kid, Eli, Gully, Scotty, Charlie and Scoop, the Cat and Marquise, Walk and Mo, El Presidente and Pedro, Cliffy and Rondell, and Orlando and Michael and Brian and Jose and Vladdy. You got the picture. A wealth of wonderful memories. And I know that as Expos fans, you won't let go of that.
And we're back on The Kaufman Show. Dave Kaufman, Jay Farrar, Mark Griffin. We've got Anakin Slade in studio tonight, and we're going to go to the phones. We have a very special guest. I feel like, I'm very honored right now because I grew up listening to you talk to Ted Teven. Earl the Pearl, welcome to The Kaufman Show.
Hey, hey.
You there, Earl?
Yeah, I'm here.
All
Can
right.
you hear me?
Good. We can hear you loud and clear. Welcome. How are you?
Great. I heard you guys talking about Gary Carter, and I thought I'd put my 2 cents in about Gary.
Please do.
You know, I think Gary was a misunderstood superstar in this city, and maybe it happened more after Charles Bronfman sort of did him a disservice by dissing him and getting rid of him. I think that was sort of the spark that sort of made half the city Gary Carter fans and maybe half of them not Gary Carter fans. But when I was following the Expos, I didn't choose Tim Raines over Gary Carter. I loved them all. They were all fabulous. They had so many great components. A team is composed of a bunch of characters, especially in baseball, where it's not a real team sport the way you have to play in hockey. Baseball's a bunch of individuals, and Gary Carter was an individual, and I think he was an often misunderstood individual. And it's a shame because he was the catcher of his era. I mean, the only other guy that was better than him, greater than him in that era, and that would be Johnny Bench.
Right.
And I watched Johnny Bench play, and he was phenomenal. I think he was the best catcher that I ever saw. But Gary Carter from that era was the second best catcher. And not only did he have a great bat, he had a phenomenal arm. They couldn't steal on him. And he handled pitchers very well. He was really good with working the strike zone with the pitchers, and he was a complete package, a true Hall of Famer. And then Charles Bronfman all of a sudden didn't want to pay, felt he was overpaying for Gary Carter, and he sort of dissed him, and I think it was a great disservice. I remember the 1981 playoffs. I went down to Philadelphia with 3 friends of mine. We drove down. This was the strike-shortened season, and that year the first half division winner played the second half division winner. The season was broken up into 2 mini seasons.
Cromartie with the flag on the field.
Yeah, so I drove down with 3 of my friends to Philadelphia. First time I'd ever taken a road trip that I can recall with the Expos, and it was phenomenal. And then they won the series over Philly, and I was sitting behind the Expos players' wives in Philadelphia, Sandy Carter and Lori Wallach, and anyway, all the girls were there, and I just followed them down to celebrate after the game into the locker room area. I couldn't believe I got in, but I just went with them, and they treated me like I was family. Gary Carter came out to the women, and he brought bottles of champagne. He handed me a bottle of champagne, started pouring glasses for us, and it was just so nice to see him being a nice, natural person. And people thought that he was, I don't know, was conceited or he was a little pompous maybe, but that's just the way he grew up, I guess. In California, it's a different way of life, and I didn't see him as being pretentious and phony. He might have been a little bit into himself, but all baseball players are like that, especially in this era. When he played, there weren't that many guys, especially, I guess, white guys maybe. You just didn't see that, and so people were sort of jealous, I think, against guys that acted out like Carter. But in this day and age, he would fit in with a normal baseball clubhouse. He was just he'd be one of the guys, just one of the normal sort of players today. And I just think he was misunderstood. And unfortunately, Charles Bronfman, I think, was a key factor in sort of pushing maybe some people away from Gary Carter after he sort of gave up on him.
Earl, thank you for your time. I miss hearing your voice on the radio.
Yeah, maybe one day again in the future. I'm not sure if I'll ever get back on with Storm and Norman, but perhaps one day.
Well, in the meantime, our phone lines are always open to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Jimmy, one more before we go to news. Let's wow, this is a blast from the past. Is this the Kid Mercury?
Yeah, hi guys. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm just coming back from playing hockey. I'm in my car.
We can hear you perfectly. Where's your trumpet?
The trumpet's not with me, unfortunately.
Oh,
but,
man, then how do I know it's you?
Well, it's me. Trust me. It's
Okay.
the kid. I have a quick story to tell you about that. First, Anakin, I just want to say, man, your song for Max Pacioretty, I noticed you put me in the clip, and it's a great song, and I really like that. I like seeing myself there, too, so you can always use me.
Well, thank you, man. You're a forum legend. That's awesome.
Yeah. Listen, the reason I am Kid Mercury, just so you guys know and the listeners, is because I used to call Ted Tevan up in the late 70s, and I'd read sports poetry. And I got on and I read this amazing poem about the Expos. We were in against the Phillies or whatever, I don't remember. And he says, "Who is this mysterious man? Who is this caller?" And my nickname was Mercury for years. I just said Mercury, and he said, "Mercury who? Mercury what?" And I just blurted out Kid, because Gary Carter was the kid and he was full of enthusiasm. That's how I always played. So I just said Kid Mercury, and that's how I got my name.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
So there's a little piece of history that maybe a lot of people don't know, but that's how Kid Mercury became Kid Mercury rather than just Mercury. So, yeah, he was a good player. I was always a big fan of the Hawk. I mean, Hawk was my man. I liked Andre Dawson more than I did Gary Carter, but anytime you hear someone's gone, it's sad news. So,
Well, he's still with us, Kid Mercury, and we are celebrating Gary Carter's life and accomplishments right now.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. We want to make that clear.
It sounded like a eulogy was going on. So
I could see how it could come across that way, but that is not the intention. We are simply celebrating one of the great Montreal Expos of all time.
Trumpet, I go, anyways, guys, great show. Keep up the good work, and let's hope that the Habs make some good changes this year.
Oh. From your lips, Kid Mercury.
Right,
Thank you very much.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
I think the first good change would be to get Kid Mercury back in the Bell Center playing the.
Yeah, why doesn't he go to the games? They kick him out of the building.
I was going to ask him. We'll have to have him back on another time.
Yeah,
and we'll ask him. Very quickly, Jimmy. I guess news is going to either be short or non-existent tonight. Let's go to John in Denver. Good evening, John.
Gentlemen, how are you?
We're very good. How are you, sir?
Saddened.
What's up?
Just Gary Carter. He was before my time for the most part, although his last game was on my 7th birthday.
But look at this resonating all the way in Denver, Colorado. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, my dad, big baseball fan, just used to tell me stories about how he hadn't seen anybody like Gary since Carlton Fisk, and how you may not see another Gary Carter ever. Just stories about how he was with the Mets and Expos. I really can't recount them exactly. Just telling me how he was, and just some of the persona stories too. Like the gentleman, I think 2 callers before me, I only cut the tail end of that. How he was one of the first larger than life. Well, not first, but one of the larger than life personas.
I'd say he was one of the first larger than life baseball personas in all of Canada, John. I mean, Rusty Staub had a certain appeal and really took to French Canada. I mean, hence the nickname Le Grand Orange. Mm-hmm. But Carter was he resonated from coast to coast, and it's nice to see that he resonated elsewhere too. And sounds like you've got a cool dad, John.
Ooh, I like this.
Anakin, you gonna stick around for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I will.
All right.
That's me.
That's you.
It's you.
Hey, that's you.
I'm on the radio.
Actually, this is from the Much Music feed because any other one has all of the words we're not allowed to say.
Vulgarity.
You said one before.
No, I
Kaufman.
didn't. I don't know what you're talking
about. Yes, you did.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a good boy. Once more, we survive on the Kaufman Show. We'll be right back.
Circus act amazing, attacking for statements, try to recapture the days and sustain the wind blown flag, the Veritas sustains. We wouldn't make it through all these sins and hatred, yeah, yeah. Once more we survive, y'all. Once more we survive.
I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna be a real gonna check. Then I won't want you. Everything be coming my way, and I won't need nobody. I'm gonna be a real gonna. Then I won't want you. You'll cry. You'll cry. You be wondering why I don't look at you and I go rolling by. I'm gonna be a real someday. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna be a real gonna, then I won't want you.
The wonderful Fats Domino bringing us back in on the Kaufman Show. I believe that's from New Orleans, from the big jazz festival that they have there every year. That really is the only one that kind of compares to ours.
Fats Domino makes me happy.
Yeah, me too.
He does.
Me too. Even the Blue Monday makes me happy.
That's my favorite song from him, actually.
I like I'm Gonna Be a Wheel. I played that I played that on Matthew's show a couple of years ago when I had Jose Canseco on.
Or his brother.
You know what? I'd talk to Ozzy.
Yeah.
Why not?
I assume they have the same voice.
I'm sorry.
They're the same guy.
Oh yeah,
actually.
that's right. The whole thing with the fight. I forgot about that. That's some funny stuff. Do we have? We don't. Okay, so we'll keep trying. We're trying to get in touch with Steph Miles. She's all the way on the other side of the earth, and not even in like she's remote. She's in Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's not even Sydney. Come on.
A hell of a tennis match going on down there, so I guess she's a little occupied.
Yeah, I have a feeling that just ended, or she wouldn't be able to join us.
Okay.
I'm assuming that the 11th seed Kim Kleisters just took care of Caroline Wozniacki.
Okay.
Poor Rory's going to be so upset.
Rory Fitzpatrick
and Patrick Fitzroy. No, Rory. What's his name? Rory McIlroy.
Oh yeah,
Isn't
that's
that,
right.
Isn't that his last? Isn't that it? The golfer. There are a couple.
I don't know.
I think that's his name.
Golf. I don't know.
No, I'm just blank stares across the room, huh? We're talking about Gary Carter tonight. I'm going to talk to. We've got Stephanie Miles coming on the program soon, and Steph is of course covering the Australian Open, but she also covered the Expo, so we're gonna make her do double duty tonight.
Yeah, I read her articles all the time. Just very informative, and it's something to look forward to. We miss Steph Miles' articles in the morning.
Well,
after
you
the
can still
Expos
read her very
lost.
often. Open Court, I think it's opencourt.ca.
Yeah,
and she writes about tennis all the time. She has that column as well in the Gazette. She's not hiding. She's just not writing baseball like she was.
she should still do Expo stuff. What do you think, Anakin Slade?
Stalwart. I want to talk more about the kid.
Why do you want to talk about the kid?
Because I'm emotional. Actually, I'm now emotional. I think I've been crying. Because I could see the video playing, and the time at the Forum where not the Forum. What's the name of our arena now?
The Big O.
The
the
arena
Bell
we
Center.
play in now. Yeah, the Bell Center. When they retired the Expos banner, and the clip I have of kid looking up at his number being retired is I find that pretty emotional.
It's a genuine smile that he has on his face, and I always notice that.
Yeah.
About
Always,
that footage.
Jay. He always had that
It was
smile.
so genuine as he's looking up at the banner going up, and Dawson's looking around. I think Dawson was confused a little bit, but Carter's looking up, and he's got this great big smile, and it's such a touching moment in that video.
Yeah, he gets a bad rap because he said publicly that he didn't want to wear the Expos cap and all that when he went into the hall. But I was just watching some old tapes of like a little mini documentary. Remember Donahue's Legends? Anybody remember that? It was like a
Yes,
a show,
an old Canadian.
Yeah, but I think Donahue was in New York. I mean, he talked like a New Yorker.
Oh, Jack Donahue.
Jack Donahue. Yeah. So he did this.
He's a basketball guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, he had a show called Donahue's Legends, and basically they did one on the kid, and so I had that on an old VHS tape, and I just watched it recently, and the way Carter, and this is a New York show, and the way Carter was talking about Montreal, I mean, he was genuinely in love with the city, and a lot of people, I mean, maybe he forgot it too, but from this interview, it was so genuine that he was in love with the city.
The thing with Carter is that the bad rap that he got was not from the media, and it was not from the people. I have to say, a lot of the time, it was from a lot of his teammates in the locker room, because nobody had seen a guy come out like the guy looked like a movie star. He's coming out of California. He never ever shied away from any kind of interview, and so people thought that maybe he was getting a little bit of shine. And I think that his bad reputation, or whatever it was at the time, was mostly coming out of the locker room. Tell you the truth.
We are now going to go all the way to Australia. We've got Steph Miles live at Rod Laver Court, and she's going to probably be the only person in that stadium to talk a little baseball right now. Good afternoon, Stephanie.
I had to leave the stadium because you know what they say about cell phones and tennis matches.
Fair enough. I
no good.
I
Yeah.
just assumed you were in a press area. I didn't realize you were sitting with the plebs.
Well, that's kind of why I'm here.
Oh, you're not? Are you? But you're there officially to cover the event. You're not there as a fan, right?
No. Do you not read the newspaper?
No, I do. In fact, I was just talking about reading you in the
Oh,
newspaper.
Dave.
Actually, no, I think we got our signals crossed all the way from midnight on Monday to Tuesday afternoon at 4. What I meant to say, Stephanie, was that I thought that you'd be able to use your cell phone in the press box.
Oh, yeah, but no, the seats are out. The seats at tennis tournaments the big ones are out, just basically like their regular seats, like anybody else has. So, no, right out there, fairly close up, not too bad.
How hot is it out today?
Really hot. I'm not sure if it's as hot as yesterday, and it's really only 35, and it's not. And people are making a big deal about it, like it's not hot every year at the Australian Open. But definitely, it's one of the things, one of the issues that kind of determines the winner when the heat's going to be this way. People who get to play night matches have a definite advantage.
I think that's what we saw with Serena yesterday, right?
Yeah, maybe. Serena came in, probably wouldn't have played if it hadn't been a Grand Slam. She had a bad ankle. She wasn't 100% physically. She got through the first ones all right, and she might have been a little toasty yesterday, but I don't think that was the reason that she lost. I think probably in another match that had Joe Wilfried Tsonga, a big French guy, playing against this much smaller Japanese guy. The Japanese guy won in 5 sets, and I think probably in that case it definitely made a difference.
I cannot remember his
The
name,
big dogs
but
go down early.
I watched the Japanese guy's the match before Tsonga, and I thought he was fantastic.
He is. He's quick. His name is Kei Nishikori, and he's awfully fast. And he and they say the big dogs go down quicker, and I think that's a little bit what happened because he has such great wheels and he gets so many balls back that if you're a big guy lumbering around there, about 3.5 hours later, you're probably going to run out of steam.
What is your view on Milos Raonic, Steph?
You know what? The kid is really, really ambitious, and I say that I mean that as a compliment. He's serious. And I don't think he's going to really let anything stand in his way to have the career that he wants to have. I don't know how high that's going to be. You never know. You have health, injuries, a lot of things can happen. But I'll tell you this: he's going to leave absolutely nothing undone, nothing on the table to make it happen. And I'm telling you, it's positively un-Canadian. He won't settle for being a gracious loser. He wants it badly, and I think that's great. Plus, he has a pretty good toolkit full of skills.
Now, this is going to be the best Canadian player in at least a generation, right? I imagine this guy's going to put Greg Rusedski to shame.
Well, look, Greg Rusedski is underappreciated. He got to a Grand Slam final and he got to number 4 in the world. So until Milos gets up in that territory, I don't think we can pshaw Greg Rusedski's accomplishments, even though he wasn't a Canadian when he got there. The thing is, this is a really, really tough era. The advantage that Milos has is that he's only 21, so 5 or 6 years from now, there'll be no Federer, and Nadal might be broken, and Andy Murray would be pushing 30, so he's going to still have some time. So we'll see what else. The guys who are coming up with him as well are quite interesting. So the next wave on the guys' side is pretty promising.
We're in conversation with Stephanie Miles, who is live in Melbourne, Australia, and we're about to shift the conversation to baseball. How long has it been since you've been to a ball game, Steph?
You know what? It's been probably the year after the Expos left.
Oh, wow.
And I went down to D.C., and I think I went to Yankee Stadium. I have not I haven't. Well, first of all, I haven't had time. I just don't. I mean, all summer long, especially since I started doing tennis, I've pretty much gone. So it's not that I hate baseball. It's not that I resent, but you have to understand something. I probably saw 1,000 baseball games in about a 7-year period there. And as much as I love baseball, it's not like, you know what I mean?
Sure. No, I understand that.
I was quite able to put it aside.
And tennis is your true passion.
Oh, it's unrelated. I mean, it happens to keep me busy, but I mean, I watched baseball from the time I was 5 or 6 years old. It's not that at all. It's just that I was never the type of fan, whether it's tennis or any other sport, who just got really emotionally attached, involved. I mean, I love to watch the game. I don't really care who wins or loses. It's sort of not how I go about it. So if it's not that game, it's another game. And I loved it when I was watching it, and I enjoyed covering it. But when you're on the road 10 months a year, doing it as a beat, it'll tend to burn you out a little bit more from the game compared to someone who watches it by choice, if that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely does. Did you grow up in Montreal, Steph?
I sure did. I used to go to Jerry Park when I was a little kid. My mother would bring me. I had a pretty long history of loving baseball before I ever covered it. That's for sure.
So tell us a little bit about growing up in Montreal and watching Gary Carter play.
Like I said, I was pretty much if I was going to be a fan of anybody, I was probably a Larry Parrish fan. I think it was just a cute factor, probably. I mean, I'm trying to remember how old I was around that time.
Scruffy third baseman, yeah.
Yeah.
You like bad boys, Steph.
I like the big burly bad boys, I guess, even back then, So, what was I, 12, 13 or something? So give me a break. I was forming my preferences early. But, I like tight ends rather than running backs. Let's put it that way. So, anyway, moving on.
Yes.
What do I remember? I mean, like I said, I was so involved in watching the game that I didn't have any particular specific memories. I mean, obviously I have some, and I just what I mostly just remember about him was the glee and joy with which he played the game. And it's interesting because you have a certain idea of who people are and how things are, and then when you get sort of inside it the way I did, you see it from a different perspective, and I find his post-career path to the Hall of Fame was a pretty interesting one.
How so?
Well, the thing about the media votes. I got my Hall of Fame vote after 10 years, and then I gave it up just because I found the voting process really flawed and really kind of bizarre, because I just think you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. And this whole notion of having a few more votes each year and trying to get over that 75% mark and all that stuff is ridiculous, because if you were a Hall of Famer 5 years ago, you're a Hall of Famer now. If you weren't a Hall of Famer 5 years ago, you're not a Hall of Famer now. Your numbers haven't changed. I mean, that's my argument about it. You haven't gotten better with time. And so the argument that Carter took so long to get the Hall of Fame was because of his personality or something, I found pretty hypocritical, because ultimately what he did was help the media do their job really, really well, because he embraced it and enjoyed it and was so available. So how can that possibly be a bad thing? How can that possibly be somehow turned against you when you want to be in the Hall of Fame? Was it because he lobbied for it? Was it because he openly said he wanted to? And then all of a sudden, you're not supposed to actually say that you actually want to be in the Hall of Fame and try to beg us we have to bestow this on you.
I think they all lobby, though. I think they all lobby. I think that's part of the process, no?
Yeah, why did it take so long? That's the question that I have. His numbers didn't change one bit. And I just felt like this whole theoretical notion of punishing someone until you're ready to bestow this on them, which is sort of what it seemed like it happened. I had an issue with it. And like I said, I gave up my Hall of Fame vote. I just don't. Willie Mays and Joe DiMaggio, I don't believe were unanimous Hall of Famers. So what does that tell you? That
no, they
tells
were not.
There's a lot of people who have no business voting.
Joe DiMaggio did not get in on the first ballot, in fact.
Yeah. So what does that tell you about the whole voting process? It tells you that it's pretty ludicrous, and a lot of people probably shouldn't be voting. And so I took a pass. And now that I don't really watch baseball, I would feel like I didn't have a right to vote. But most people who do get their Hall of Fame votes don't feel that way. So.
No, I don't think any of them do feel that way. And I have to say, after knowing what I know now, which is that you would not put Tim Raines in the Hall of Fame, I'm not really that upset that you don't have a vote.
Look, you know what seems to happen with the Hall of Fame is that it almost averages out, towards the lower, because when you have, let's say you have 50 people in the Hall of Fame, and I think it should be for the cream of the cream of the cream, not very good in your era, but unbelievably great in your era. And so if you have 50 guys who are in the Hall of Fame, and then you have the next 50 guys who, let's say, played those positions and had just slightly lower statistics, just barely lower. Now, they're almost as good, so they get in. So then the next 50 guys, it's the same thing. They're almost as good as those guys. So then they eventually get in. You know what I mean? It seems
maybe they should make a 2-tier system where they have. Well, no, I'm actually not kidding about it.
The Hall of Good.
Yeah. Well, no, you have tier 1 Hall of Famers, and you have tier 2 Hall of Famers, and one gets a plaque, the other guy doesn't. I don't know.
They've done that in 1937, maybe, but I don't think you can start that today.
Yeah, you can't blow it up and start it over again. That's the thing. But like I said, every person, like Jim Rice, gets in, after all this duress because he's almost as good as so and so. And then Andre Dawson gets in because he's almost as good as Jim Rice or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It just drops the level required to get in a little bit every year. And I feel like Tim Raines was a great ball player, but he wasn't as good as Ricky Henderson. But because he was almost as good as Ricky Henderson, then we think he should be in. Now, a lot of people, like we've all met Tim Raines, and Tim Raines is a great guy. So I don't necessarily think the people who feel that strongly about it, who followed his career or who knew him a little bit, are necessarily the best ones to sort of judge it objectively. And I understand that. There's an emotional component to it. But like I said, he was very, very good. Was he as good as Ricky Henderson? No, I don't think he was. Is he almost as good? Maybe. So if he's almost as good as a Hall of Famer, does that make you a Hall of Famer? That's, like I said, it's just a whole circle of almost maybe. And it's a tough call because ultimately they're all judgment calls.
They are, and the debate will go on forever and ever and on. No?
Or maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's no solution to it, but I guess debating it is 3/4 of the fun anyways.
Exactly. I mean, and it's not like we have to deal as players with the stress of waiting for that phone call in early January. It's easy for us to talk about.
And that's my whole point, is that if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. It should be clear to everyone. So to have to sit there and wait year after year to hope you got 3% more of the vote, that either 5 people suddenly decided to vote who didn't vote last year, or 5 people decided that even though your numbers haven't changed, last year they didn't think you were a Hall of Famer, and this year they did think. I mean, the whole process is pretty cruel.
It's baseball's a tough person. Yes, Jimmy. Oh, you just want your pencil back? Okay, Jimmy. Well, sure.
Times are tough.
Sure.
Here
I mean,
in the
I've got
studio.
Steph Miles on the phone from Australia, but Jimmy needs his pencil back. Here you go, Jimmy. Steph, when are you back in Montreal?
He wants to put his Hall of Fame vote.
That's right. He's got to get his ballot done. When are you back in Montreal, Steph?
In about a week.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what day it is today, so I'm giving you a general response.
It's Tuesday for you, and you know what? It's 25 minutes old, but it's Tuesdays for us as well.
Well, there you go. Happy Tuesday.
Yes, enjoy. I feel like I'm talking to Back to the Future here. It's a very surreal thing to know that you're all the way on the other side of the globe in the scorching heat of Australia. And I guess we should let you get back to Clijsters and Wozniacki if that's still going on, right?
Sure, but I have some lottery numbers for you that I know in advance because it's already been Tuesday here for a while.
Yeah, if you can let us know who wins the Aussie Rules football games that are starting tomorrow, that would be awesome too.
I'm on it.
Thanks, Steph. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Speak to you
problem.
soon. And there she is, Stephanie Miles from the Montreal Gazette. You can read her in the paper every day.
Every day.
Every day. Not on baseball, though.
What's in your eyes? Is that the diamond from the mine? What's that laughing in your smile?
514-790-0990. We've been talking Gary Carter all night, and we're going to keep it going. We've got Elias in Toronto.
We know this guy.
Do we?
Yes, we do.
Elias Tufexis.
Indeed.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are
Welcome
you?
to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for
I don't
joining
get
us.
to call that often. I'm glad I got through today.
No, but we love it when you tweet, and we love it when you listen, so we appreciate it.
Nice. I just wanted to talk. Basically, I wanted to go a little nostalgic with Anakin and Jay there when we were at Gary Carter's last game. And I just, I was always a Tim Raines guy. I loved Kid, obviously, but I was a crazy Tim Raines fan. But I just remember the way watching Anakin with that sign standing on the dugout, or right behind the dugout, and people staring at him and commenting on the sign. He drew, I don't know if he's told you, but he drew a picture of Gary Carter, and the kid signed it right before the game, and it was just seeing the emotion in his eyes. I wanted him and Jay, who was there also, to talk about that.
Lee, you remember that well, or what?
I do, man. I remember sitting back, I don't know, it must have been six or seven rows behind Anakin.
I was just going to ask, did you? Because I know we had tickets up in the bleachers, and then we went down. This was right before the game. We should explain. Right before the game, Carter was, basically, walking around the field. Everybody was giving him a standing ovation, and I had. It's in the video. You see a picture of footage of it.
You're wearing one of those cheap Expos helmets.
Yeah, I'm wearing one of those cheap. That was the only merchandise we could afford at this point.
That they had available.
And I had an old school practice jersey, red.
That's right.
Remember that old red practice jersey? It would be the only thing I would wear. Anyways,
and I have to say that I had my my nickname is Lee, as you heard Jay call me before, and so somebody bought me a Bill Lee jersey, and I was wearing it.
which you then turned into. It was 37, and you turned it into Rondell White. That's right.
So wait, are you talking about Carter's last game in 92 or Carter's last game in
92?
Oh, okay.
92.
The double over the Hawks' head.
Yeah.
Right field. And,
which I still think he did on purpose.
Lee he said it that game. He goes, I'm telling you, Andre Dawson missed that ball on purpose for his buddy Gary Carter. I'm like, dude, they hate each other's guts. Why would they do that?
I don't think they hated each other's
No,
guts.
I'm kidding. I'm joking. No, yeah, but he had bad knees, and you could see Dawson was hobbling, and he was never going to get to that ball. There's no way. But that was electric just being there.
Elias, what about what he meant to the city, not just on the field?
I don't know, man. Like, I was never. I loved the kid, and I watched. I remember those commercials you guys were talking about before. But the thing for me is watching like the guys that loved him, and watching how much they loved him. Because I'm a big fan. Like the Habs. My favorite players are my favorite players, but I love everybody on the Habs, except maybe Scott Gomez. But
jeez.
I'm kidding. I like Scott.
You're not kidding, buddy.
Back on topic, boys.
Thank you. Sorry. But just watching guys like Anakin and just watching him, get so swelled up with emotion over, this guy just signing his drawing that he made. Not even that. Think about how long I don't know how long it took you, Anakin, to draw that poster, but it was pretty good. You still have it.
It probably took me longer than making the song, actually.
Probably. I still think you should make, I know it might seem a little kind of bad timing, but I still think you should make a Kid Carter something.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, it's hard to make it look like you're not kind of trying to capitalize on the poor guy's illness, but you're not. We know you're not.
No, well, it's hard even like to get a mood right. Like we're having trouble even with this show. It's kind of like, some people think that, he's already gone, so I've thought about the song, and I thought the same thing. I'm like, how can you get the mood right? Someone who's still with us, but we know probably doesn't have that much time,
Make it personal. Make it personal. Make it a thing.
It's always personal, bro.
No, but I mean directly, as if you're speaking. As if you're speaking directly to him, and then donate any proceeds to charity.
Okay, it's not a workshop, guys.
No, it's not. And the one wonderful thing about the music that you've created, Anakin, that's resonated with me, is that it seems to just come to you. You don't spend this long, laborious process creating it. Like your Expo song was very much like Michelangelo with the big piece of marble, and he can already see the creation inside the piece, and he just knows to chisel around it.
Well, I think artists have rules about that. You can't kill it, and Elias is an actor, and he knows that once you feel like you've nailed the part, you don't overdo it. You just go with it.
514-790-0990. Who do we got up next? We got Steve from Redondo Beach, California. This from the famous Expos bar in Redondo Beach, California?
Well, I don't own it, but I hang out there. How you doing, guys? How you doing, Anakin? When are you coming back?
This is my man Steve right here. We got photos. I got photos with Steve. You know what his nickname is?
Tell me.
Expo. Yeah, that's what everybody calls him, like it's his first name. Expo in Redondo Beach, the best place to go in L.A.
Steve, your thoughts on fellow Californian Gary Carter?
I'll get to that in a second, but first of all, who wouldn't listen to a show where Shea Paré is like your advertising? I mean, only in Montreal would you hear this.
You are not the first American to comment on that tonight.
Steven loves beautiful women as much as he loves the Expos. That I know about him as well.
Second, Stephanie Miles, disagree with her. Timmy should definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but she doesn't have a vote, so it doesn't matter.
I know. I'll get to my Carter story in a second. Third, Anakin, to answer your question from earlier, it seems to me when I do wear Expo stuff, I am getting more and more comments. 3 days ago, some guy from New Jersey came up to me and he said, "Oh yeah, I miss the Expos." All right, here's my Carter story, and it's also a Montreal Expo story. In 1979, when the Expos finally were starting to establish themselves as let's call them a perennial contender, they were playing the Phillies in a 3-game series. I think the first game was a Monday night game, but it was not Memorial Day, but the holiday that you have in Montreal on Monday. And the Expos won like 12-0, and the Phillies had just won the Eastern Division crown the year before, and I think the Expos were in the process of passing them. And the crowd, I think there were like 3 or 4 homers hit that day, maybe back to back to back. But I think Valentine hit one of them. The next night, Tuesday night, the Expos shut them out again. I think Rogers won 5-0. The third game was a Wednesday afternoon game in May in Montreal. And as you guys probably know, no one usually shows up to these games. 30,000 people showed up. They had to delay the game about a half an hour. It was 1-0 for the Expos, top of the 8th. And Gary Maddox, I don't know, I'm older than you guys. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a great, well, he was a good hitter. And I don't want to say he was a great hitter.
Right.
He was a solid hitter, got on base a lot, but he was a big stolen base guy. Either he was pinch running, or he got a walk, or he got a hit. And it wasn't Rogers. I think it was Scott Sanderson. He was trying to pick him off for like 5. I don't know. He must have thrown him over there 5 or 10 times. Finally, he tried to steal. Carter made a perfect throw, threw him out. And here's the bottom line on the story. And I've never seen this, and I've gone to about 1,000 games in my life. I never saw a catcher get a 5-minute standing ovation before for throwing out a base runner. It was amazing.
Wow.
So, you know, and the game wasn't televised. I don't know if anybody else even remembers this, but that is my Gary Carter story.
What year was that again?
That was 1979. It was the
Nope.
first. That was the year that they won 95 or 96 games that they lost, and they ended up a game or two behind the Pirates. It was their first year over 500.
Jimmy, would you please jump in and read this box score for us?
Definitely. Gary Maddox, pinch runner. He got caught stealing. It was the Expos winning 1-0. Scott Sanderson started that game. Only 6 hits allowed.
Steve, look at you. That's a cracking memory you've got there.
That's pretty pathetic that I know all that shit. Well, it's etched
Not
in my
pathetic
memory.
at all. We are now going to call you Expo.
All right. I'll take that as a compliment from you guys.
As you should take that as a compliment, please. We're calling the guy who's called from I was going to say from the furthest, but we got Steph Miles too. But Expo, we appreciate it, and you call in anytime.
Thanks.
See you in March, buddy.
All right. Bye.
There you go. There's the scoop. If anybody wants to meet Anakin Slade, just hang around LAX for the month of March.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
He just hangs out at LAX.
Or the Redondo Beach Cafe.
We are going to go back to the phones. We've got Daniel in, I assume that's Montreal. All right.
It's Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah, it's
a hybrid, Montreal, Quebec.
Yeah, it's a couple of miles from here.
Daniel, what's going on?
Not much. What's going on with you?
We're having a good night. I was afraid that this was going to take a really sad tone, but I think we're doing it in the right way. Everybody here is smiling, and everybody's been calling in and just sharing wonderful memories of the kid.
Of Gary Carter?
Yes.
You know, Gary Carter is one of the best guys ever. I used to know him really well, matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Please, go
Daniel,
on.
did you meet Gary Carter?
Yeah, matter of fact, I met him a couple months ago, matter of fact. That's about it.
Where did you meet him?
At the Olympic Stadium 2 years ago.
Okay there, Daniel. I think you're a little off on your timelines, and we appreciate the call, and we wish you a very good night. Let's go back to the phones.
No, I think you said
514.
2 years ago.
He said a couple of months ago, and then he said 2 years ago at the Big O. I wish I lived in a world where I could think that I was at the Olympic Stadium a couple of months ago watching baseball.
Yeah.
We've got Brian in Toronto, the Raptors devotee on Twitter. Good evening, Brian.
Been a pleasure listening to you gentlemen tonight and
Thank
paying
you.
homage to the kid.
Thank you very much.
Well deserved. My recollections of Gary actually are, when he first called up, and his absolute his reckless abandon, the way he played ball. We know the story how he used to run into the outfield fences and outfielder, and they said, we got to save this guy because he's just going to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
And they converted him to a catcher with his incredible arm. But his absolute just love of the game, which was so infectious and so genuine. And he actually should be holding, public relations courses, on how to deal with the media and everything else. And you're right. You made a great point earlier tonight, how it just wasn't appreciated back then. And players back then, they just didn't understand, I mean, like Steph said, they made their job so easy to do.
Yeah, I never thought about it from that perspective, but it's funny how she equated that he should have gotten into the Hall of Fame faster because of his relationship with the writers.
All he did was sell the sport. That's all he did, basically.
It also doesn't hurt playing, 5-6 years on Broadway. I mean, for that matter. I mean, God knows if The Rock would have gone earlier and left Montreal, I hate to say it, but if he would have gone to an American city, a major metropolitan area, he'd be in the first ballot probably.
Wow. I wonder if that's, okay, if he'd been a Yankee his entire career, possibly. But numbers are numbers, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, the numbers
I mean,
are
Bernie Williams isn't getting into the Hall of Fame ever. Mattingly, good point, Anakin.
No, Mattingly, although you have to look at the numbers, Mattingly in his prime, and I mean, I'm old enough to remember him. I mean, in his peak years, I mean, he was just a total monster, but he just didn't do it long enough. Reigns did it for the entire decade of the 80s, so you can't compare the two.
Are you a Torontonian or a Montrealer, Brian?
I moved in '89. I grew up, watching the Expos, Jarry Park. I used to have my 50 cents junior Expos card. I used to go to every game. Take the 92 bus. I go from Côte St. Luc, take the 161, the 17, the 92, the 80. It took me 4 buses to get to the park. Okay, it was a real trek. And like back then, parents, they let you go out on your own. 10, 11 years old, I'd be taking the bus all over the place. I mean, it's not like today, where you basically have your kids till they're like 20. So I used to go with my good friend. I'll give him a shout out, Danny Freeman. We used to go and we'll sit with our Expos cards, and we used to sneak in from the junior Expo cards. They would sometimes allow us to climb the fences and get into the 275 seats, the grandstand section right next door. And then they would catch us and they would throw us back to the bleachers right after.
The amount of kids adults now that I've heard as kids snuck into Jarry Park, it's a wonder they made any money.
You're right about that. I don't know how they made money. I mean, not to mention they probably made money because they had to wait till the sun went down. They had about 15 minutes to sell more concessions.
I wish I'd had Jarry Park memories, Brian. It must have been just a wonderful place to watch baseball. And I remember it from when I was young at the when I'd go to, I guess it was called the Players something Open back then. I think Players Cigarettes sponsored the tennis tournament back in the day. Or maybe it was the Demorier Open. And the stadium back then was still, it had the configuration of the baseball field.
Yes, I remember that.
Like I remember going with my mom and watching, who was that? The two Canadians, Grant Connell and Glenn Michibata. Wow. I wish Steph Miles was on now. That would blow her away. Yeah, that's right. I got tennis cred, yo.
That was as good as my Mario Roberts last week. Actually, that's even better.
Grant Connell and Glenn Michibata. Wow. Okay, blast from the past. But we sat like essentially where third base would have been, just in the stands, 10, 12 rows up behind third base. It was a great view of the court. But I was this kid, and the entire time I was thinking, wow. What a spot to watch Major League Baseball. What a contrast between that and the Olympic Stadium. Unbelievable. Brian, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. This is the Kaufman Show. I have a feeling we're going to go on a little late tonight. I hope you guys don't mind. If anybody else wants to stick around, I want to finish up and give Carter his due.
If anybody else, what if everybody just leaves?
Well, I'm talking to the rest of the studio. I don't mean.
Oh yeah, okay. You're talking. Okay.
I'm assuming that people are not going to. Oh, it's 1:00. I better turn off my radio.
Yeah, I got things to do, Dave. No, I'm here, man. I'm not going anywhere.
Because I do want to talk about Mr. Tim Thomas for a little bit. Wow, did he make me think of the West Wing today?
How's that?
I just pictured Martin Sheen as president and his reaction to this ridiculousness.
You picture Martin Sheen like just getting pissed off at Tim Thomas.
Yeah, and
yelling at him.
That's exactly it. I pictured him going into this giant Latin rant and smoking a cigarette in church.
And then Thomas just turns into Charlie Sheen and has a bad life.
No, now you're just mixing up fantasy and reality.
Oh, okay.
I'm still in fantasy land here.
I
Come
see.
on.
Okay.
There's an iconic West Wing episode where he's the president, and well, obviously he's the president. He was the president the whole show, but he's in the Washington Cathedral, and I can't remember, something calamitous had just happened, and he's in there by himself, and he's smoking a cigarette, and the president in that show had MS and definitely wasn't supposed to be smoking, but he was smoking a cigarette and cursing and ranting in Latin, and I just pictured that as the reaction. Bartlett being the president from New Hampshire, the ultimate lefty, made Bill Clinton look like Glenn Beck. And the reaction to just the ridiculousness from today. So we'll talk about that briefly in hour number 3 of the Kaufman Show. And in the meantime, I think we'll all go around the room and just share some memories about the kid. I alluded to it before, but I met Gary Carter when he first came back to Montreal. He was a guest instructor every week at John Elias's baseball school in Côte St. Luc, and I was a devout student at that school. I think they had like 4 or 5 sessions every summer, and I'd go to 3 or 4 of them. I just loved it. I loved it. It was so much fun. All it was you play baseball. Drills in the morning, games in the afternoon, as much Gatorade as you could drink. And usually late mornings, a ball player would come by. 90% of the time, it was an Expo. Sometimes a guy from another team came. I remember Bill Swift coming the year that he was an All-Star. Billy Swift pitched for the San Francisco Giants. So Gary Carter would come, I'd say once a week. He was obviously a good friend of Johnny's. And his daughter, Kimmy, who's been the spokesperson for the Carter family throughout the kid's illness, was a teammate of mine at the camp. And man, could she rake the ball. She was better than the boys. Not surprising. She had a pretty good teacher. But every time I've seen a statement from Kimmy Carter, all I picture is 12-year-old Kimmy Carter making all the boys look foolish. But the player would come and they'd do it was the don't do drugs and stay in school and work hard and respect your parents and maybe a drill or this is how you feel the ground ball. And I mean, I have great memories of Brian Barnes. You remember him?
I remember Brian Barnes.
Brian Barnes was a middle reliever, 91, 92, 93. I think he came in as a starter at first and it didn't work out. Shock of red hair. I remember I think I'd just seen the Best of Eddie Murphy Saturday Night Live. So I used to yell out Opie Cunningham whenever I saw him. And
Man. I'm sure you enjoyed that, Kaufman.
Yeah, I remember that, and this is just to show you how long ago it was. There was a kid, when Brian Barnes came to speak, who had a Pittsburgh Pirates hat on. And Barnes took the hat, stomped on it, put dirt all over it, and threw it in the garbage.
Wow.
You do not wear that hat in Montreal. This is an Expos town. I loved that. Those days are long over. But, Brian Barnes, and anybody who remembers Brian Barnes on air, probably around this time of night, with Terry and Mitch one night, had just an unbelievable debate about, I think it was about having a gay teammate. And Barnes was from North or South Carolina, and Terry's from Manhattan. And needless to say, their views were about as opposite as one side of the Mason-Dixon line to the other. It made for wonderful radio. I still remember it to this day. Gary Carter comes to the camp, and he had just held out. I think he wanted $500,000. I don't remember exactly what the number was, but whatever the Expos were offering, it was below what he wanted, and he held out. And there was a long part of spring training where he didn't play. He joined the team late, finally got to the team, and he came to the camp, and, you do the little drill, and like I said, stay in school, don't do drugs, love your parents. Would you like to take any questions, Mr. Carter? John Elias asked. So he said, sure, and a bunch of kids raised their hands, and they go to me first, and I say, and I was 91, 92, right? I was a kid.
92, yeah.
92. So I was 11 years old that summer. And I raise my hand and I say, Mr. Carter, if you really wanted to come back to Montreal so badly, then why did you hold out for the extra X hundred of thousands of dollars? John Elias's jaw hits the ground. And all the instructors turn white as a sheet. And Gary Carter very calmly looks at John and says, that's okay. And answers the question in a way that I don't remember exactly now, but it made sense to me. It totally placated me. And he did it in a very diplomatic and gentlemanly way that explained that he had a value and that he deserved. And, in retrospect now, with 20 more years of thought, he deserved so much more than whatever he got.
What an honest man.
It was something else, Mark. It was such a cool experience. You know what? If you want to take it a step further, that's my first action as a baseball reporter.
I was going to say, a journalist back then, a little punk kid questioning Gary Carter. I like it, Kaufman.
Yeah, now the only
Showed
difference
some
is
cojones.
now the only difference is the punk kid has a beard.
Yeah.
But that was my memory of Gary Carter. And then afterwards, in a very unjournalistic way, I got him to sign an autograph for me. And I had this beautiful baseball book that was, remember Beckett's, the card magazine?
Mm-hmm.
It was something like that. It was some sort of a memorabilia baseball magazine. I'll bring it in. I'll show it to you guys sometime. There was a series of photographs in there by a photographer named Robert Riger, Riger. And one of them was 86, Game 6, after the Red Sox lose. And it's Carter jumping up and down, being swarmed by the rest of the team. And he signed it to David, all the best and God bless, Gary Carter. And I've had that on my wall for 20 years. I moved last week. I think it's like the 6th or 7th move I've made in the last 8 years. I've lived as far as London, Ontario. I've lived in Toronto. I was out in BC. I brought the damn picture with me. This has meant a lot to me through my life. I'm not religious. The God bless it's really more a reflection of him than it is of my thoughts of it. And it's funny, you hear people talking about it, and I've been guilty of it too, of pray for Gary or say a prayer for Gary. And, you know, when we all get to difficult points in our lives, we often reach out to something else. And I get the people that do it when they do it normally. I always feel like a bit of an ass when I pray outside of, you know, like once my mom was real sick and I found myself praying. Because you're looking for something, right? And when you're desperate, you're looking for something. And I've met him a couple of times, but he meant a lot to me. And I found myself praying in the last week. And that's very outside of my norm. I am not religious at all. But I think it's just a testament to how much Gary Carter meant to us. And we know he's still here. And I know that the tone of this show has been a mournful one, at least on its surface. But maybe Kimmy Carter's listening. Maybe Sandy Carter's listening. Maybe Gary Carter is going to hear about this and know how much people in this city care. You guys remember the video speech that Carter gave to the crowd at the final Expos game?
Sure do.
Legitimizing Montreal as a baseball city. He took great care when they had the Gary Carter Hall of Fame Day at the Big O, and he gave that speech. I think that was a game against the Brewers. He made very clear to never give up that feeling of legitimacy, that this was a big league town. And he was the big league star. And it's great that Gary Carter was the first Expo to go into the Hall of Fame.
He was always there for us.
And that happened in 2003, too. That it happened just as I remember having to make the choice. Am I going to stay in Montreal and go to an Expos game? Or am I going to go to Cooperstown and see Gary Carter? And I chose the Expos game because I knew there were only so many left.
And the rally in 98, he was there, too.
That's right. He showed up there, and that's that famous picture with him and Vladimir Guerrero and Rusty Staub.
At the Place des Jardins.
Yeah, and that's it. He was the first and maybe only actual superstar that played for the Expos. He just came off that way, and he is one of the people that cinched Montreal as a legitimate baseball town in the late 70s and early 80s. It's very clear what he did for this city, and he always I mean, a lot of people give him flack for all that New York Mets stuff and all that, but anytime he talked about Montreal, he said it with sincerity, and you can tell that he really, really loved playing here and living here.
He got to go to New York City and play on one of the most eclectic, exciting teams of all time. A team that is celebrating its 25th anniversary as World Series champions. Or just did.
My first memories, I grew up in upstate New York, and I was not a huge baseball fan growing up, but in '86, I got sucked into the '86 Mets because of this man and his smile and his passion and his joie de vivre for the game. And that's my first sports memories, watching the kid play. I remember that stuff as a 9-year-old kid, and it got me playing baseball.
That smile will resonate in this town for a long, long time. Gary Carter has meant more to this city than any athlete since he left, I'd say. I can't think of a Hab that was bigger than Gary Carter. Patrick Waugh, maybe. But not on a national scale like Carter was. One of the big things about Carter was that he was in his prime. The Blue Jays were here, but the Expos were still Canada's team.
Right. The Blue Jays had just come into the league and weren't as well known as the Expos. The Expos were already established. They were a good team, not only a good team, but they were competing for pennants, and a legitimate World Series appearance was imminent at that time, and Gary Carter was leading the way.
Listen, I get the question all the time, who's your favorite hockey player? I have to think about it. Who's my favorite Hab of all time? There's tons of Habs that I really like. People ask me, who's your favorite football player? Who's your favorite, actor? I have to think about these things. When someone asks me who my favorite baseball player is, it's an instant answer without delay. Gary Carter. So much so that he was, like Buck said, he was not only influential as a athlete, he was influential in my life. He was part of my upbringing. And that smile that you're talking about, it's so familiar to me. I'm watching these old tapes. The familiarity when I just see that smile and the crow's feet and everything about his face, I feel like I'm looking at my dad, to be honest. Like, I feel like he's
whose name is Gary, by the way.
Yeah, which is funny, but I really do feel like he's a member of my family.
I think we all feel that way, Anakin, and that's why it was important that we do this now, because we're all feeling it now. And frankly, I didn't want to wait for horrible news to have this show. The news is already horrible. But we want to celebrate what he's done, what he did with the Expos, what he did with the Mets. Tommy Lasorda tweeted today, once a Dodger, always a Dodger. Played 110 games with the Dodgers. Played with the Giants. Mm-hmm. Florida Marlins?
No, that's it.
That was it, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Dodgers, Mets, Giants, Expos.
Hall of Famer with an Expos cap. Like I said before, it's not something I'm used to saying or doing, but say a prayer for Gary Carter. We all will. Jimmy, we're going to go late tonight, right? All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back. This is The Kaufman Show. Anakin Slade, thank you for your time, my friend.
It was a lot of fun.
We'll see you again, and like I said to Buck, next time you come in, something happy.
Let's do it.
All right.
You don't knock, just walk on in the door. Walk on in. I walk last winding road. Surely this slow. Travel both the night and day. So tired, could hardly pray. Yeah, Jesus, my light, my guide. River by my side. So I'm walking out, knocking into heaven with pride. Well, you don't knock.
Welcome back. It's the Kaufman Show. Let's change the pallor.
Okay, let's do that.
All right.
It's too bad my bro left.
Well, that's okay.
I think he would have something to say here.
You know what? He's more than welcome to call in if he wants. He can be Anakin from wherever the hell he wants to be from. We won't be able to prove it.
Andrew from Chamonix.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Then we wouldn't even know.
Yeah, I think we know.
I do want to touch on Tim Thomas. We'll get to these callers and see what's going on. We'll consider this an open forum here on the Kaufman Show. Let's go to Eric in Montreal. Good evening, Eric, or good morning.
Hey guys, it's good morning for me. Just a couple of things. I think that helmets and pre-warm-up should be mandatory.
Yeah, so do I. Wow, that was a terrible injury, wasn't it?
Not just him. Spezza tonight just got one off the kisser in the pregame. He was all right. He played, but I think that they're like the Flyers. They have 6 players out with the concussions. It's ridiculous. They should think about the safety of the players. I'd like to mention also that the Sarah Burke incident is very sad as well.
Oh my God, just terrible.
I'd like to encourage people to donate to the foundation because on top of losing their kid, the parents have to pay a $500,000 medical bill for her. And I personally donated some money. I don't usually do that, but I think it was for a good cause.
I commend you for that, Eric, and I'd like to inform you that they have raised enough to pay the medical bill, and now everything else is going to be, I believe, for a foundation set up in her name.
Well, that's awesome because I could imagine losing a kid. I'd also like to say I don't get, although the Thomas incident, a bigger thing happened for me at the White House is I was looking, and if you notice behind Barack Obama, who do you see? You see Thomas Cavalier.
Yeah,
what was he doing there?
He won the Stanley Cup last year with the Bruins. He was,
I know, but
according to when the trade happened, he was an integral part of that team.
Yeah, his all one assist in the whole time he was there. I don't get it. I don't think he should have been there. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, that was my 2 cents. And great show as always, guys. And keep up the good work.
Thank you, Eric. Have a great night.
Caberlet wasn't there during the playoffs, so why would he be there at the White House?
Well, exactly. But you know what? I would go too.
Well, of course you have to go. I mean, you have
Tim
the ring.
Thomas didn't.
No, well, Tim Thomas is self-important, so it's okay.
It's mind-blowing is what it is. Let's go back to the phones. We got Roy and Dorval. Hello, Roy.
Hi, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good.
Kaufman, I want to thank you very much for having this show about Gary because too many people wait till after the fact or after they're gone to appreciate people. And by some chance, if Gary happens to be listening, I want to say I don't think he remembers me, but I met him twice personally. Once I won the contest to meet him. I think 4 couples from each station in Montreal, radio station, had a chance to meet him personally and get his autograph and some pictures and an emblem. A silver coin emblem. I happened to have won from your station with Mitch Melnick and Terry Haig. And another time I met him when I coached a little bantam kids, Sal, and one of my kids that I taught, I coached, had cancer, unfortunately, and I got Terry Haig and Mitch Melnick, who Terry Haig is an awesome man. I don't know
Yes,
if
he
you ever
is. I have nothing but love for Terry Haig.
I know I haven't seen him many years.
I'll tell you, Terry's one of the reasons that I'm sitting in this chair right now.
Good. I'm glad to hear that because he is an awesome man. He got me to go on to the Expos with my whole team, and especially this kid. And I met Gary again there personally, and he was so nice to this kid. I mean, Gary he gave him you see the baseball, a mitt, uniform, and this kid was in heaven, and his parents were so happy, and I was so happy for these young kids, appreciate having the time of their lives, and Gary was a big part of that day. And I just want to say, Gary, if you happen to be listening, you were a big part of my life that I have enjoyed more in my lifetime. I'm in my late 50s, early 50s, or whatever. I think my best times in my life were watching Gary Carter play baseball and meeting him and watching the whole Expos in general. And I miss him very much, and I wish him all the best. I think God bless him. God bless him, and I wish him all the best.
Roy, thank you for
Thank you
those
very much.
kind words. Have a great night. That's what it's all about, eh?
He's touched a lot of people.
It's I'm so happy that people have called in and shared their stories tonight. It's yeah, he hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what we were trying to do. We did not want to wait for Gary Carter to not be here, for him to know how much we care.
That's right. And even if he's here, and you know what? Let's hope and let's think positive, and maybe he will be here for a few more years. I mean, it ain't over till it's over, and let's just think about him and talk about him. He's sick right now, and we've got to support him, and hopefully he can recover
and stand up to cancer. And it's nice that baseball has taken up that campaign this year. It's the timing has been fortuitous, I think, and I think back to the playoffs this season. There was a wonderful Stand Up to Cancer ad that was done by Major League Baseball, where it had every player that was, all these different famous ball players in the ad, and who they're standing up for. I stand up for my mom. I stand up for my dad. I'm standing up for, and then it gets to Ron Darling, and it says, I stand up for my catcher. And man, that just gave me goosebumps.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it just gave me total goosebumps. Ron Darling. Remember when he was with the Expos?
Oh, God. My goodness. Yes, I do.
Cup of coffee. I remember him being interviewed, I'd imagine, by Melnick, and talking about how when he was a kid, he used to go to Belmont Park with his family. They used to go to Montreal, come to Montreal on vacations. And I know Belmont Park is before my time. I imagine before yours as well, Jay.
Belmont Park, yeah, it is before my time.
But I used to hear my parents talk about that place all the time.
Yeah, I had blue bonnets. That's what I had growing up. That's where we used to hang out.
No, this was like amusement park, not like the track.
Oh no, I know. Oh, that's right. And didn't like a roller coaster break down? Anyways, who cares? Right?
Did one? Oh, I
yeah, something happened. There was an incident, and I don't know.
We're going to bring on our next guest right now. That's right, surprise guest in hour 3 of the Kaufman Show. I've been looking forward to speaking to this gentleman for quite a while. His name is Mike Wendt. Works on the radio in Boston. Huge Bruins fan. He's the weekend guy at WZLX. That's right, I said Z because we're talking about an American station. Classic rock. And look at you and Mark Wahlberg in that Twitter avatar. What are you showing off?
You like that?
Well, I don't know. You're with the guy that says he could have stopped 9/11.
You know, have you seen The Fighter?
I know the real life version where Arturo Gatti kicks his ass.
Right.
And no matter what sport, we're gonna Montreal's just gonna try and take you on.
No, this one had a much happier Boston-centric ending.
I do like the slew of Boston movies that come to the forefront. The Town I thought was just fantastic. The final scene at Fenway there was super.
I mean, absolutely. I think as just any type of sports fan, but especially a Boston sports fan, having a shootout in Fenway Park would be amazing. I saw that, and I was just like, "Yep, that's."
It's amazing it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, give Ben Affleck a call.
So we're joined by Mike, and we're going to talk a little bit about the White House visit today.
Yeah.
And Mike, what's going on? What's the reaction in Boston?
Well, this is one of the things I really dislike is mixing politics and sports because you really get 3 different types of people, and nobody's really having a discussion. They're all just yelling their opinions at each other. You know, the sports people, like myself, I'm not a political person by any means of the imagination. So it doesn't really bother me that he didn't show up. It was his choice. It was his thing. But what I don't like is from the sports side of things, he took the attention away from the team.
There you
which
go.
is what it was all about. And that I didn't like. However, I mean, he did make a relatively boring afternoon entertaining, especially on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, but at what cost, Mike? I mean,
I know.
This is going to follow him for the rest of the season.
It is. And the funny thing was, like I said, I'm not a...
Actually, that's not true. It's going to follow him all the way through to next November.
It probably will, yeah. But, I'm not... Like I said, I'm not a political person. I didn't even know Tim was this much of a political person.
No, I had
now-
had no idea.
Right. Because he's relatively a quiet guy, especially when it comes to media and stuff like that. So this is, he had to think this through very heavily because he's not dumb either. He's going to know the impact of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You can have convictions and opinions, and I'm not questioning his intelligence. I'm questioning his devotion to the team.
Yeah.
And to me, and really to your city.
Yeah.
Because to me, this was a major slap in the face to Boston. Because the story is not about the president. And I know a lot of people argue that this is really just a photo op for the president. I don't agree with that. Because there's hockey fans of every other team, and chances are they hate the Bruins.
Right.
So seeing Barack Obama with the number 11 Bruins jersey doesn't make a Democrat who cheers for the Flyers want to vote for Obama anymore.
No, that's true, and especially because the Cup Series was so. I mean, it was U.S. and Canada at that point when it broke down to it. So, I mean, it was a big thing for having the president of the United States with an American hockey team winning the Cup. But slap in the face, yeah, I guess it is.
I'm giving my opinion, Mike.
No, absolutely.
And I'll tell you, I am not a fan of George W. Bush, but wow, what I would give to be able to talk baseball with him. Honestly, I would love nothing more than to say, and now we'll welcome our next guest. He was the 43rd president of the United States, and he traded Sammy Sosa for Rosenbag. And I feel like that would be a great interview. And there'd be no reason for me to ask him about waterboarding.
No.
Because what the hell answer is he going to give me that he hasn't given to Charlie Rose?
Right, exactly.
You know? And Mark Griffin, who's in studio, made a point earlier today that perhaps if he had gone and said something, you know, at the appropriate moment when the cameras aren't rolling and when he has a second to shake the president's hand and say, with all due respect, sir. And you know what, Mike, that would never happen.
No.
And unfortunately, the idea of there being a
that.
sir is gone. The complete lack of respect for the presidency is what blows me away.
Yeah.
Because this office used to mean something. And even to me in Montreal, I mean, I guess I'm a bit of an Americanophile, if you will.
Sure.
I've always been into it. I have, when I was a kid, I used to skip school to watch Inauguration Day.
Right.
I love the pomp and circumstance of it. There's nothing like that here, Mike.
Yep.
And I wonder what happened. And I wonder if it's Bush, or I wonder if it's that there's a black man in the White House.
No, honestly, I think a lot of the specialness of everything went away with a lot of things that went away with, like the social media boom. I think we're such an instantaneous, instant gratification culture now that there's no waiting, there's no drawn out anything. It's like if you're not a trending topic now, you're nothing. So, the whole, long-term type of build-up for stuff like waiting, like you said, you'd skip school for, inauguration. Now you could watch it in school on your phone.
Wow, that's a very good point.
It's like it's not special anymore because that was special. You had to actually skip school, potentially get in trouble or something, get detention, but now you got everything is like you can do anything now wherever you are.
Fast food culture.
Exactly. And I think it's taken away the special moments, or at least lessen them a bit, because now it's not so much about experiencing those moments. It's seeing who can tweet something funny about it fast enough. Who can be the first one to get on something on Facebook. I think that, and I even made a joke about it today on Twitter myself. It's like, political stuff aside, who wouldn't want to a picture of Barack Obama?
Right.
I mean, he made a statement. Thomas's statement came out on Facebook. What's that say? Imagine that. Wouldn't the statement have a little bit more impact if he was, if he changed his profile pic to him and Obama?
I think it would have had a lot more of an impact if he'd gone and done everything like he was supposed to do today, and then maybe spoken to the White House press corps on the way out and said, I disagree respectfully.
He's not helping his sport. That's another thing. The
Right.
NHL is having problems. I mean, this is not the most viewed sport out of the Big Four. It is well beneath basketball. I mean, well beneath basketball.
Right.
And this is an occasion where they can take advantage. And it's a photo op with the president of the United States. You take advantage of this situation and you promote your sport. You promote what you do. You don't promote yourself at the cost.
Absolutely, and I'm not trying to argue that it's not a selfish move at all. It absolutely is. I mean, and like I said, he had to have thought that this is going to impact me in a certain way, and he obviously is fine with that. I mean, we can all agree or disagree or agree to disagree, and at the end of the day, as long as he's stopping pucks for us, I don't care.
Wow.
That's the bottom line.
You know what picture I would rather see than a picture of Tim Thomas and Barack Obama?
What?
Him back on those duck boats with the cup.
There you go.
I'll be quite honest, and
no,
that's
that makes
my
perfect
opinion,
sense.
because that's coming from me, who's not a political person.
Yeah, and from a town that had Kurt Schilling, I get where you're coming from.
Right. Right.
Well, no, come on. Cut from the same cloth, I'd say, sort of, right? I mean, Kurt Schilling's a pretty big libertarian.
Yes, very much.
We're just finishing up with Mike Wendt, the weekend radio guy at WZLX Classic Rock in Boston. Be warned, you can follow him on Twitter, Mike Wendt, WENDT. If you friend him on Facebook, though, your Bruins quotient in your feed is going to really, really go up.
It will.
My God, man, you tweet like, nice save, Thomas.
Yeah.
You don't stop.
No, I mean, especially during games. But you know what? As far as tweeting during games, funny, it's great you brought that up because I actually I'm one of those people that have rules about that. I need rules because I'm very OCD about stuff especially about tweeting during games. If you see me tweeting live during a game, you know I'm not at the game.
Okay.
Because I won't do it unless I'm in the bathroom or in the beer line. Because that's one of the things I can't stand because I've seen it so many times, especially at like Red Sox games or something like that. Just a sea of people looking at their phones.
Yeah, it's a different world out there, eh?
You know, and I saw a bunch of them coming through the other night during the Patriots game, and I thought to myself, you just paid a few hundreds to possibly thousands of dollars to sit there and look at your phone. Because and you know what happens? A big roar from the crowd, and that person pops up and goes, "Oh, what happened?"
I think it was everybody trying to correct their bets when they knew the Patriots weren't going to cover.
Right.
And are you a big football guy, Mike?
I'm not really.
Okay, well then we'll leave it on this, and I wonder your thoughts. If the Patriots managed to win the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, would this be the worst team to win a Super Bowl?
The worst team to win a Super Bowl.
And the reason I say that, I'll quantify it.
Okay.
Yesterday's ass backwards falling into a win over the Ravens was the first win by the Patriots this season versus a 500 team, an above 500 team. They beat a bunch of teams that finished at 500, but that was the first team that they've beaten this season with a record over 500. I think that's right, and if not, it's like the third. They've had the easiest schedule, and a lot of that's playing in the AFC East, but who ever thought that the Patriots would make it to the Super Bowl?
A lot of people here in Boston.
In a game where Tom Brady doesn't throw a touchdown.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Brady was so un-Brady that game.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to watch. But that being said, as they say in New Orleans, laissez les bon temps rouler, let the good times roll in Boston. Things are looking pretty sweet right now.
Yeah, they don't suck right now.
No. Across the board, it must be a nice feeling to have 4 professional sports teams.
Spoiled rotten.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and they're winning.
But now you've got something to deal with, and I imagine this was my call earlier in the show. People are going to start pegging Tim Thomas with tea bags at hockey games.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's going to be the new, like the rats on the rink in Florida, or, well, I guess not really like the octopus because it's not like there's thousands of them thrown onto the ice. But I think there's going to be a real tea party wherever he goes, and I wonder how many Boston fans are going to get behind that.
I think I don't know. I think it's also going to be one of those things that I hope anyway, because again, I can't stress enough how non-political I am. So I see things from a different point of view, and it's just like I hope it kind of blows over. I don't think it will, but I hope it will. You know, I hope this is just like, okay, he did that, and you know, like I said, like you said, fast food culture. You know, I hope it's just like you want to hope something happens like tomorrow, just overshadows it.
Well, from your lips, I guess for the sake of the Bruins, you can hope that happens. I selfishly want to see how this plays out, Mike.
Absolutely. I'm sure you do.
We'll have you back on soon to talk not politics. Sorry for dragging you
No,
into
that's
that.
quite all right. It's anytime, absolutely. And I just want to say I was listening, and really great job with the Gary Carter stuff.
Thank you.
As a frequent visitor of Montreal, it's one of my biggest regrets of never getting to an Expos game up there.
Well, next time you're up here, we'll have to meet up and have a beer and talk all about the Expos and the Red Sox.
Absolutely.
Good. Looking forward to it. Mike Wendt, thank you for your time.
All right, man.
Have a great night. All right. Just for a little different for a perspective that's a little bit different than ours.
I expected a different opinion, but I can imagine what the radio stations are doing right now in Boston. I'd love to listen in.
Do you think that that's the predominating thing, or do you think they're still talking about the Red Sox and what they need to do?
Well, it depends. I think
the Patriots in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Started off as 3-point favorites. I know we don't talk about spreads, but this is the Super Bowl. Next week, we'll try and find a good prop. I've told you guys about my Bruce Springsteen bet before.
Yeah.
Best bet I've ever made in my life was that Clarence Clemens would have a sax solo during
the
Springsteen.
Super Bowl,
the halftime for Springsteen. So we'll see if there's a Madonna-related wager that we can get in on. Otherwise, Mark will have his Oscar picks for you next week. Nominations are tomorrow morning.
We'll split it up.
Deal. Let's go to the phones. It's George out in God's country. How are you, sir?
Hey, how's it going? The Lucky Charm here.
What's going on, man?
Let me tell you something. I don't know. Maybe I'm insane. You tell me. About an hour ago, my wife came by while I was sitting there in my office listening to the show with my headphones on and doing some work on a laptop, and she smiled at me and she says, "You coming to bed, honey?" And I turned around and said, "No, I'm listening to the Kaufman show."
Wow.
Now, if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is.
I thank you, and I wonder if that was the right call when you know you can listen to the podcast
Hey,
later.
listen, you know what? I've been married now it'll be October the 16th is going to be my 30th wedding anniversary.
Hey,
so I think I'm doing
congratulations.
something right along the line.
Obviously you are. Maybe the key is to take those couple of hours away, at least every Monday. She knows she's got some time to herself, 11 to 1 on Mondays.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to listen to the Kaufman show more than just one time a week. So let's hope, cross our fingers that the powers above there are listening to the fans. That's what I'm saying.
Fingers crossed, absolutely, George. Thank you.
Two reasons why I'm calling. Yes. Okay, first of all, let me just make a quick point about Tim Thomas. I tweeted with Mark a little bit earlier in the evening, and I asked him, I said, in 1972, Marlon Brando refused his Oscar.
That's right, the Native American on stage show accepting the award.
Who wasn't really a Native American, by the way.
Yeah, it was a pretend.
It was an actress.
Yeah. And then George Patton also, I remember, refused an Oscar.
George C. Scott for Patton.
Yeah.
And then I asked Mark, I said, after, 35 years, do people actually remember why they didn't accept their award? Like, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I see myself, like, in 30 years from now, the fans, nobody will ever remember that Tim Thomas didn't show up to the White House because he wanted to protest something.
I'll tell you what, George, in 1991, Michael Jordan didn't go to the White House when the Bulls won.
Well, I don't remember that.
Yeah, Michael Jordan did not show up. And I guess it was Michael Jordan's Democrats buy shoes too moment.
Yeah.
We all think of his Republicans buy shoes too moment, but that must have been MJ's Democrats buy shoes too moment.
But I'll tell you one thing, as far as Tim Thomas is concerned and playing in Boston, Massachusetts is like very pro-democratic. I don't think that's going to go very well over there. That's not going to be a very popular move with him. That's for sure.
Sasheen Littlefeather accepted the award for Marlon Brando. Thank you, Jimmy. Obviously not her real name.
Clearly.
George, what was the other point, man?
The other thing the reason why, obviously, you had a show, and I want to commend you for Gary Carter, because, as you well know, probably, because we've been chatting back and forth, I was a big Gary Carter fan, okay? And I actually blogged about that. And I said that, basically, I grew up in one of the best eras that anybody could possibly grow up in Montreal. When I was in my 20s, and my late teens and my early 20s, in the mid 70s to early 80s in Montreal, that was a time because, first of all, it was the Canadians winning championships, Stanley Cups 4 in a row. So I really loved that period. We had the Owls having a very good competitive team and winning a couple of Grey Cups along the line. And then we had the up and coming Expos, because I remember back in 1976 when Carl Keel was managing the Expos at the last year that they were in Giant Park. We had a very pathetic year. We had a really bad record. We had a really bad attendance. We didn't even go over 1 million fans. And then in 1977, everything started to turn around. A few free agents here, and then the arrival of Gary Carter, and then followed by Andre Dawson and the rest of the guys. And being in Montreal in '79 during that season when they won 97 games, I remember being glued to the radio station, and I was amazed because they played back to back because of the rainouts. They had to play like 2 times back to back double headers, and they swept them both times, which was an amazing feat, and it was an amazing time. And what I was saying is that during that period of time, if there were 2 iconic figures in the city, okay, Guy Lafleur was obviously number 1 because hockey is number 1 over here. But you know what? Gary Carter, in my opinion, was a close second because, he put us on the map in North America. Because let's face it, when it came to hockey, a lot of Americans are not aware of it. But baseball was USA's national pastime. And Gary Carter was starting to become, and the Expos, a household name. And so that's why I really loved Gary Carter. I loved his style. The only thing that I didn't really appreciate it is I couldn't figure out exactly why he went and got an afro. Because here I was, I spent most of my high school days having curly hair and trying to get straight hair, and I couldn't figure out why Gary had straight hair and was trying to have curly hair. So that was kind of funny in those days.
Well, if that's your level of hate, then I think you love the guy.
Anyway, guys, again, keep up the great work. You got me here tuned every Monday for sure, and there's nothing that will stand in my way. Let's just put it that way.
George, thank you so much for
Take care,
for your devotion to the show. We greatly appreciate it. It's great to know that we've got listeners like you. Don't know what else to say to that.
Yorgo loves the show. Haristo, Yorgo.
That was Greek, I believe.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Latin, I'll tell you that.
Can I say it's all Greek to me? That's right. That was the sound of me winking. This is the Kaufman Show. We going to wrap it up? I don't know. We'll see.
I got nowhere to go.
Yeah, me neither.
Dave?
Me neither.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to a bar right now. I'm having too much fun here.
No, who wants to go to a bar right
Exactly. This is the Kaufman Show. Phone lines are open. This is the hip at Woodstock. You were there, Jay.
I was there.
Yeah.
Maybe
Enjoy.
you can see me.
Every Monday morning I gotta drag her down to the unemployment agency. And when I'm down this morning, I ain't fighting if she don't shut up. Tell her I ain't fighting. Tell her I am. But it's the last time her ass is gonna be riding with me. Did you know that's the truth, baby? Because when the hot sun beating on a black top, she keeps talking, she'll be walking that last block. She can take a taxi back to the ghetto tonight. Alright, 'cause I got some beer and a highway speed, and I got you, and baby, you got me.
I wish there was more of it, Jimmy. I wish there was more. That's all there is. It's from The Promise. It's a minute of just pure audio gold. Little Steven and Bruce, the original Sherry Darling. This is the Kaufman Show. Super extended edition. Once again. Look at us go.
Do I get overtime for this?
Yes,
or-
yes,
Yep.
you do. Yeah,
Thank
you get
God.
1.5 times what I normally pay you.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
I won't spend it all in one place.
I heard I'm getting 1.5 times what they normally pay me as well. So,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
this is pretty sweet.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
excited.
I'll go to 5 in the morning if you want.
I don't know if we have enough material to go till 5 in the morning.
Don't worry, I'll make some material for you.
Yeah, we might need somebody to go get us some coffees. If we could always put John to give him another job. John Kakalakis is here as well. One night we will get him on air. We just need to find another microphone. It's crazy in here, isn't it? sometimes?
There's no microphone in that room over there. Or?
I don't think it. I don't think it transports across the
No.
across the floor that
Okay.
way. I don't think it works.
All
like
right,
that.
we'll work on it.
Got a text message from a buddy in New York saying that he's tired, or he'd call in and tell me how wrong I am about Tim Thomas.
Well, he's tired?
Yeah.
He's tired.
He's too tired to put me in my place, I guess.
Uh-huh. I don't know. That sounds a little. I don't know. I'm so tired, but you know.
Let's be nice. It is 20-2. Come on.
Well, he's up.
Yeah, but exactly. I mean, he's up for one reason, because he's listening to the Kaufman Show.
Well,
and for some reason we haven't been able to put him to sleep yet. So
I'm just trying to call him out. I'm trying to coax him into calling.
call in, Samo. Call in, Mark.
Yeah.
I was gonna say he could leave us a message on our Facebook page.
Very good call. The Kaufman Show on Facebook. Please join, like, do all the cool things that allow us to see that you are down with us. You can also follow Mark Griffin on Twitter at Montreal Mark with a C. You can follow Jay, Mr. Jay Farrar, on Twitter at JPubRadio. I am at the Kaufman Show, for simplicity's sake. Jimmy, we got to get you on Twitter. Sean Campbell sent out a tweet tonight saying that he got you on Facebook.
Yes, he did.
And now we need to get you on Twitter.
And just one thing, just spell Kaufman for the fans. You know, the 1F, 1N.
1F,
Always.
1N. It's like Andy Kaufman. It's spelled
Perfect.
in the most simple Americanized way. I don't even think Kaufman was the name when the family got to Ellis Island.
Probably not.
I'm pretty sure that was the name in front of them or on the paper when they got there. And instead of just drawing a circle or an X, they went, yeah, that one. Kind of a Jewish Smith, I think.
Is it?
Yeah,
Is Kaufman the Jewish Smith?
Well,
I think it'd be like Stein or
Goldberg
or whatever. I don't know.
All the suffixes of the names you mean?
That's right. I don't know.
Mark, I would like you to help us change the tone right now. I want to ask you about when you met Stephen Harper.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Because I saw you send out a tweet about that and was going to ask you over Twitter, but thought, hey, let's leave it for the Kaufman show.
Yeah.
But in relation to what happened today with Tim Thomas deciding not to go to the White House, you went the other route. You actively decided to go to an event so that you could give the Prime Minister a piece of your mind, right?
Yeah, well, it's a quick backstory. It was 2008, 2 days before the federal election. And I am in a very small town called Saint-Tite. It's a couple hours north of here.
Mm-hmm.
It's where they have the rodeo. And my cousin's daughter was doing a choral event for the Conservative Party.
Okay.
And they said, "Oh, do you want to come along?" And I'm sure I'll support your daughter. And so we go inside. Well, we're heading inside and had to go through all the security and like, what is going on here? And it turns out, oh my God, Stephen Harper is at this event. And so, you know, I said to the people, I'm not a conservative. I'm here to support my friend's daughter. Got asked a million questions, you know, took my ID, blah, blah, blah.
Like you were vetted to go into the event, you mean?
Yeah. And I had, they said you're going to have to put a sticker on, to come a conservative sticker on your shirt to go in. And I bit my tongue. And after 20 minutes of questioning, they let me in. And eventually, you know, it was a breakfast. And so I went through the line. You get to speak to Stephen Harper for 20, 30 seconds when you're in line. And the guy in front of me, Stephen Harper, said, I like your hat or something. My cousin has a hat like that. And then he came to me, and I'm still shocked. It's 2 days before the federal election.
Sure.
And then it's my turn in line, and he says, "Oh, your shirt is exactly like my brother's or something." I paused for a second and a half, and then I said, in English, everyone else speaking French, and I said, "I don't like the federal and provincial art cuts you're going through right now." And his jaw dropped, and spoke to him for about 20, 30 seconds and politely said my opinion on the matter, and he responded, and that was it. And, you know, I went home that day just being proud of saying what I wanted to say and being respectful about it. And so moving forward to what Tim Thomas did today, I just wished, like we spoke earlier, that he'd just, you know, gone and been part of his team and then politely been able to spend a few seconds with Obama on the side and say, listen, this is my version of what's going on here. Obviously, he has an opinion, but to me, strength and your ability to talk directly with someone when you have the opportunity is a big part of that to me.
I feel like if he wanted to push an agenda, he could have done it so much better than through his Facebook page.
Yeah.
We don't even know what agenda he's pushing. I mean, it's
well,
so
it seems pretty
vague.
clear on the but that's, you know, Jay, you used to talk about that with the Occupy movement too,
right?
That everybody's complaining, but I don't know what they're complaining about.
Yeah.
So
if he has such conviction that he refuses to go meet the president of the United States and stand with his teammates during a time of celebration, well, at least have the balls to tell us what your problem is.
Well, he said he has a problem with all three branches.
Oh, well, okay. Who doesn't? I mean, really, him and 350 million other people.
Yeah.
And you know what? And, you know, Mark is right. If you got an elected official there, he works for you. You pay his salary. You should be able to walk right up to the guy and say, listen, you suck, dude. You're totally ruining everything. Do you remember 1985, right before Live Aid, Bob Geldof goes straight to Margaret Thatcher's face and tells her that people in Africa need buttermilk. She had no idea what he was talking about. She's like, I don't see how that can help. But completely goes in her face and says, listen, it's Bob Geldof. He was a little bit more popular. But goes in her face, tells her straight up, people in Africa need buttermilk, and you're cutting off supplies, and there's no reason for it. Do it. Just go. Tell the guy you got a problem with it and tell him. Who cares? Oh, it's inappropriate. He's not the king. This is not a monarch. This is an elected official paid by the people. Don't, you know, I mean, if you're going to have an agenda about it and you're going to have conviction about it, well, at least tell us the specifics of why you want to do that.
I find it And we just had Mike Wendt on from Boston, and he talks about how much he deplores the idea of combining politics and sports. I kind of get off on it a little, to be honest.
It's all the same, man.
And he had written earlier in the day that it makes him feel like he's kind of like a Habs fan. Because, well, politics and sports kind of go hand in hand in this town to do with the Canadians. We've been dealing with it on this show for
ever
or longer. Exactly. Now, I think it's an opportunity to raise the dialogue, not to lower it. And, this is the second time in the last, not that she compares, at least on our sports antennae, but Kelly Clarkson came out in favor of Ron Paul a few weeks ago and caught just a firestorm for it. Got into so much trouble. What's the reaction going to be? Mike Wendt said, as long as he stops pucks.
Yeah, well, what I can see from it is that he seems to have more of a kind of a libertarian point of view, it seems. He doesn't trust any branch of government, and who knows, if it was George Bush, he might have done the same thing, but people are saying he's for the Tea Party. Who cares what he's for? Anybody should be allowed to say what they want. It's fine. But my problem here is that he didn't go and stand with his teammates at a very, very important moment for not only his team and his city, but for his sport as well.
If I was a Bruins fan, I would be so miffed by this. Because this is about the Bruins. And I know I keep harping on this. I keep coming back to this. But this is not about... Look, the guy was an integral part of that Bruins team. He won the Conn Smythe Award, for crying out loud.
And wasn't he the only American on that team?
No.
Someone tweeted that today.
Ooh, I don't know.
No.
Definitely the only
Jimmy,
U.S.
can you look that up?
Only a U.S. Olympic team member. He was the backup goalie for the U.S. in Vancouver. I don't know. And yet, a lot of people will take this and say that Tim Thomas is a patriot. And really, America is built on freedom of speech. It's frankly much more protected than it is here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he didn't have the right to do it, but he doesn't, you gotta, for me, it's more of a sports factor. I don't care about the politics. Like Mike was saying, I don't care about politics. I'm the same way. I don't even vote. So, sorry, now everybody's going to get mad at me, but I don't vote. I don't.
Just your host.
I don't vote. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't support any political party.
That explains how 5.7 million Canadians voted Conservative, and they have a majority government.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get into that with you.
5.7 out of 30 million.
Yeah, the government doesn't make a difference to me, liberal or conservative. It's all the same crap. But I'm saying...
I think that's what Tim Thomas feels, too.
But this is more about sports and his teammate. It is really more about... I think it's really not about politics at all. It's really about standing with your teammates and helping out your sport a little bit.
Yeah, and again, you made that point earlier, and I couldn't agree more. You have to be an ambassador to hockey in that moment.
Of course you do. Especially in a moment like that, when you're with the most powerful man on the face of the earth, and there's literally hundreds of millions of people watching this, because you know that the journalists and the paparazzi and the media are going to follow whatever Obama does.
Steve Kampfer was the other American on the Bruins last year. Thank you, Mike.
Ooh.
Good to know that you're still listening. We appreciate it. He had more of a contribution to that team than Thomas Caberlet, I think.
Well, Youppi had more of a contribution to that team than Thomas Caberlet.
David Ortiz had more of a contribution. Let's go back to the phones. 514-790-0990. Ryan in Edmonton, good evening.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How are you?
Show tonight on Carter. Great
Thank
tribute, guys.
Thanks for listening, man.
I just want to comment on what Mark was talking about. You know, we got a kinder, gentler way of handling our politics in Canada, and that's the appropriate way to do it, I think. I mean, you've got all this partisan politics down there, and we've just got a better way of doing things up here, I think.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It's a different way of doing things.
You wouldn't say they have partisan politics down there in the States?
Oh, you don't think it's here, man? Come on.
No, I don't. I definitely don't.
Really?
Not to the same degree.
Wow.
I don't see the same hate.
Spoken from the western enclave of Alberta, which hates Quebec, it hates Pierre Trudeau, and hates his national energy plan.
No, but he's right there.
Sorry, man. You haven't seen Western alienation. It actually You haven't seen the perspective out here. You've been as far as London, and that's about it.
No, I actually lived in Vancouver for a while, which is, I know it's very liberal, but I spent a bit of time in Squamish, which was the home of Sarah Burke, and it was a lot more conservative than one would think. The amount of people and comments that I heard out there just took me away. But my point is that it does exist, Ryan. I think the last election showed that it's just as bad here. That the same dirty pool, inside baseball, whatever you want to call it, but that nasty side of politics has now crossed the border.
Standing up in front of Parliament.
Like DePape standing up, yeah, and thank goodness that Tim Thomas didn't do that. No, that was deplorable. I don't like Stephen Harper, but I wouldn't do that. That girl, and you know what? That girl had a golden opportunity.
That's the sort of stuff we don't want in Canada, but that's the stuff that happens all the time in the States.
Well, hold on, but we just gave an example of it happening in Canada.
That's right, and we don't want that, and that's such a rare thing that happens. But in the States, this stuff is happening all the time. In the media, it's just everything is partisan. Everything you read, everything is negative in the States when it comes to politics. Here in Canada, we try to come to some consensus. You know, our conservatives, when you look at it, Kaufman, really when it gets down to it, they are the Democrats in Canada. I mean, really, when you're talking about right and left wing, you don't get really any more left when it comes to conservatives as the conservatives in power right now.
Well, I don't know about that. I think that as we've seen since they've gotten a majority government, they've governed more from the right than from the center. Now, in the last two administrations for Harper, when he'd gotten in on minority governments, when he defeated Martin, when he defeated Dion, I think that was a different example. I think that was them governing from the center. But you look at the cuts that have gone on now, you look at the lack of debate that you see in the House of Commons, and frankly, Ryan, I get what you're saying, how the conservative movement in Canada is nowhere near as hardcore as the conservative movement in the States. It's still a hell of a lot more conservative than I want to see my country. And I think that, unfortunately, we have a government that's too far to the right and an opposition that's too far to the left. And what really sucks about it is that our central party has become irrelevant. And back when the Liberal Party had relevance, and don't forget one of my favorite lines, which was said to me by a conservative staffer that I ran into at the Habs Canucks game this year, was that the Liberal Party ran Canada longer than the communists ran Russia. The only difference is nowhere near as well, which I always thought was very funny. I'm a lib. I will say that I voted. I was one of the few that still voted for the Liberals in the last election because I believe that it's important to come from the center.
Yeah, and I just don't see where you're coming with the right wing on the conservative side.
Really?
I mean, there's been a lot of concessions that are made. People have talking about, is he going to open up the abortion bait? No, it hasn't happened. The gay marriage thing shut down immediately a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for that.
Where's the evidence of this right-wing conspiracy that the Liberals and, frankly, the left feel that, is coming out of Alberta or something like this, which to me is completely inaccurate. But I just don't see where these right-wing conspiracies are coming from in the Conservative Party.
I don't think
Arts funding has not been cut, 100%.
Arts funding has absolutely been cut, Ryan, and I don't see how you can say that it hasn't. Arts funding has absolutely been cut. Now, I don't think that we have to get into, pro-choice, pro-life as to whether to debate. The Conservative Party knows how to stay in government. Stephen Harper is a fantastic politician. Just the fact that he can speak a better French than anybody in this room right now shows what a wonderful politician he is. He is shrewd. He is intelligent. I respect the guy, but I don't agree with his politics. And again, I didn't agree with Jack Layton's either. I found those were too far to the other side. And you look at what Bob Rae did to the province of Ontario when he was the NDP premier.
Oh, he's a nightmare.
He bankrupted
he's running for Libs, and he's going hard for it. And he's an absolute nightmare. I lived through partially his days, Rae days. I mean, it's ridiculous what he did.
Well, I find it very interesting how two people can look at the same situation and see it from such a different point of view. And, I don't think that it's an oppressive government. I don't feel there was a big part of me that last May that was afraid the sun wasn't going to come up the day after the election. And I was in Toronto, guys. I watched Ignatieff give his concession speech live at that hotel, at the Sheraton. Happened to find myself walking out of a Getting Blanked the Score event. I think there was a think we watched Major League that night, and got into a cab and said, "Where's the best place to watch the election?" In retrospect, he probably should have taken me to NDP headquarters. That would have been a way bigger party. It was more like walking into Paperman's. It was a rough one. But Ryan, thank you for the call. We always appreciate it, and thanks for listening tonight.
All right.
I imagine
Ryan's pissed off.
I imagine that debate will continue on Twitter. Yeah,
he'll be back.
Well, Ryan's a big fan of the show, and in fact, we should have asked him about his
sports.
Yeah, we should. No, you know what? And Ryan, because you're still listening, I'm going to remind you before you hate me that I got you Ricky Romero, Casey Janssen,
yes.
Brett Laurie, and
my brain.
Me too. My God. I got you 4 Blue Jays autographs. You're not allowed to hate me. You have to love me.
I don't think he hates you.
And we want that. Did you send it to him, Mark?
No, we're gonna trade. We're gonna send it off for the PK Subban autographed rookie card,
and then we're gonna give away the PK Subban autographed rookie card on the Kaufman show.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ryan,
and thank you all for listening tonight.
Can I give a quick trivia question?
Sure. I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to answer it on.
Well, it's for you guys.
Okay.
Oh, for all of us.
Sure.
Where did Gary Carter get the nickname the Kid?
Can I take a shot at it? Because I think I heard this the other day.
Sure.
Was it Ted Teven?
The man who used to stand where you're sitting. Ted Teven.
You know, I've thought about Ted Teven all night tonight. And punctuated by Earl the Pearl calling in. I can close my eyes and picture myself as a kid lying in bed with the radio under the pillow. And I wonder if there's anybody doing that right now. And you know, like Mike was saying, it's a different world now with media consumption. Maybe they're sitting there with their cell phone under their pillow listening on the app. But I can just hear Ted Teven say, Earl the Pearl. And then they'd go on and on and on. And
Earl the Pearl.
There you go, exactly. And if Earl pissed him off, then he was gone, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat.
But still have him on the next day, no problem.
Ted, do you want me to rub your temples? Want to thank all our guests tonight. It was just a wonderful show. Jonah Carey, Buck65, Stephanie Miles, Mike Wendt, in-studio guest Anakin Slade, Earl the Pearl for calling in, Kid Mercury for calling in. My God, I haven't heard that name in forever. Talk about a blast from the past. Kid Mercury on his trumpet, climbing the boards at the old Forum. Remember the promenade at the Forum? How cool was it that you could walk at ice level?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I miss that.
I remember
place.
that.
Very nostalgic show tonight.
Yeah, and a lot of tweets, a lot of feedback from a lot of people who didn't get enough. We didn't get the time to get to, and it was just it was fun reminiscing here with you boys.
Yeah, and we'll be back next week to do it all again. In the meantime, for the kid.
Stayed out too late, had a little too much to drink, walk home, cross the bridge when the marquee shut down. There's a reason that I love this town. Nobody cares how much money you have. If you've got enough to get in a cab, there'll be drinks on the house. If your house burns down, there's a reason that I love this town. I saw your band in the early days. We all understand why you moved away. We'll hold a grudge.